Chapter 2035. Yun Jian was not joking. Su Zetian was now managing Falcon Hall for her. Falcon Hall's ability was now so powerful that it could annihilate any mafia group effortlessly. This was the result of Su Zetian's hard work for the past 2 years. Back then, Su Zetian thought that he could only be the boss of Longmen City for the rest of his life. Now that he was the top mafia group in Zhe province, he was more motivated than ever. Returning to reality and hearing Yun Jian's words, Song Yu, Song Fan, Mo Bufan, and the rest of the martial arts club, including Brother Kai and the rest, were stunned. Would the Fortune Wolf gang wait to be removed from Zhe province if they did not agree to her request? This was the Fortune Wolf gang. How dare Yun Jian say something like that? Did she really think that she was some kind of powerful figure? Everyone thought that Yun Jian had lost her mind. If she wasn't crazy, how could she have said such words that could possibly lead to a fatal disaster? Even Mo Bufan was slightly worried about Yun Jian, so he spoke up. Yun Jian, don't spout nonsense like that. Mo Bufan said that out of goodwill. After all, the truth was right there. No matter how outstanding Yun Jian's ability was, she was only one person after all. On the other hand, the boss of Jianghu City's top mafia group, Song Fan, had a large group of people behind him. It was easy to tell who had the upper hand with just a glance. Just when the atmosphere was at its most tense and everyone thought that Song Fan would explode in the next second, a brisk and loud middle-aged man's voice rang throughout the place. Ha ha ha. Good temper. Young lady, I like your temper. Everyone saw Song Fan, who was standing in front of Yun Jian and beside Song Yu, guffawing before looking at Yun Jian with admiration. Not only was Song Fan not enraged by Yun Jian's words, his impression of Yun Jian had improved instead. Everyone's jaws dropped in shock. Young lady, I'll see you after tonight's gathering. Now that my old friends are here, I have to go entertain them. Don't leave first. Song Fan's eyes flashed as he said to Yun Jian. Yun Jian's red arc arched again at the sight of it. Song Fan was indeed different from Song Yu. He was a smart person. See you after the party, Yun Jian said in front of everyone after Song Fan gave her a hint. After that, Song Fan was escorted by his dozen or so bodyguards as he walked towards the group of important figures in the distance. This group of people were all dressed in upper-class clothes. Some of them were Song Fan's partners, while others were Song Fan's old friends. No one saw the glint in Song Fan's eyes before he left. If outsiders did not know the meaning behind Yun Jian's arrogant tone, Song Fan had already guessed Yun Jian's identity. As she watched Song Fan leave, the red arc on Yun Jian's face disappeared. That's it? Nothing happened at all? The surrounding people were bewildered. No one could tell what had happened just now. Only Yun Jian and Song Fan knew what had happened. Yun Jian. Do you know what you were doing just now? You're too shameless. You're shameless to the extent that the whole world will be ashamed of you. When Lan Yi saw that the important figure Song Fan had walked away, she was left alone with the group of university students. Thus, she glared fiercely at Yun Jian and said loudly, "Thank you for the compliment." "Same to you." Yun Jian did not evade Lan Yi's words. "Thank you for the compliment." "Same to you." What she meant was that if she was shameless, then Lan Yi would be exactly the same as her. Lan Yi did not immediately realize that Yun Jian was scolding her in a roundabout way. "All right, I'll take you to the place where we play. There's a place for us to play. There are guns, balloons, arrows, darts, and so on. There's also a stall with food and drinks. If you win, you can even win prizes, eh?" Chapter 2036. Song Yu suggested when he saw that Song Fan had gone far away. That night, even though Song Fan had sent out the invitation in the name of the number 1 sect in Rivertown, the banquet was held halfway up the mountain. That was because they knew that many important people would come over that night. Furthermore, it was a gathering at night, so it was different from a normal ball venue. It was very big and there was a lot of traffic. There were at least tens of thousands of people gathered here tonight. Therefore, Song Fan naturally couldn't provide all the food and desserts. In addition, although Song Fan's Fortune Wolf gang sounded scary, they had never hurt ordinary people. Therefore, there were a lot of street food stalls, or game vendors who played balloons, archery, and darts, as if they were going to a market. There were barbecue, fried snacks, noodles, and so on. There were also games that children liked to play, such as balloons, archery, and darts. If it wasn't for Song Fan's invitation, this place would have been bustling with noise and excitement, turning it into a night market for people to go to. In addition, the lights illuminated the surroundings as bright as day. If it weren't for the surrounding mountains, people would believe it even if someone said that it was a foot of a bustling city. As soon as Song Yu finished speaking, everyone present nodded. You guys go. I won't go. Yun Jian turned her head and said to Zhu Huili, Mo Bufan, and other members of the martial arts club. Song Yu's words obviously aroused the interest of Zhu Huili, Mo Bufan, and others. Even if the people present were no longer elementary, middle, or high school students, they were still very interested in this kind of game. You won't go? How could that be? Song Yu muttered the last sentence in his heart. How could Yun Jian not go? If she didn't go, how could he carry out the next step of his plan? Just now, when he brought his father, Song Fan, to Yun Jian, Song Yu thought that Yun Jian would change her opinion of him after knowing that his father was Song Fan. However, Song Yu never expected that Yun Jian would have such an attitude. Fortunately, he had a next step of his plan. Song Yu quickly winked at Miao Li, who had been standing at the side without saying anything. He wanted Miao Li to think of a solution. Seeing this, Miao Li hurried over to Zhu Huili, held Zhu Huili's chubby hand, and said to Yun Jian, let's go together. Let's all join in the fun. Isn't that right, Huili? You also want Yun Jian to go with you, right? Zhu Huili wasn't used to Miao Li suddenly calling out to her in such a gentle tone. She nodded blankly and said, yes, yes. Yun Jian, let's go together. You're quite lonely here. It'll be more lively if we go together. Yun Jian saw how Song Yu winked at Miao Li just now. Hearing Zhu Huili's words, Yun Jian agreed. She wanted to see what Song Yu was going to do. The group soon arrived at the place where they were having fun. Song Yu blinked his eyes. He deliberately sent Mo Lianhua, Pan Qian, and the others away today just for this moment. Clap clap. Song Yu suddenly clapped his hands after he brought everyone to the place. After a while, a group of people dressed as members of the Fortune Wolf gang came out from all directions. This group of people held many roses in their hands. After a while, they used the roses to make a heart shape on the ground. There were a total of 99 roses, not one less. Oh my god. It's so romantic. Oh my god, Hunk Song is too romantic. I'm so fascinated. Seeing this scene, the girls standing around all cried out in alarm. What the girls yearned for was nothing more than a romantic confession. At this time, Song Yu had already walked to the heart shape of the 99 roses in front of Mo Bufan, the martial arts club, Brother Kai, Miao Li, and Shi Xiujuan. He reached out to Yun Jian from 5 meters away, looked at her affectionately, and said, 99 roses represent my heart. Yun Jian, I love you. Be my girlfriend. I'll protect you forever and won't let you get hurt. A. Chapter 2037. Song Yu reached out his hand to Yun Jian, waiting for Yun Jian's reply. Song Yu stood in the love circle of 99 roses, waiting for Yun Jian to walk towards him. Normal boys would kneel down on one knee when proposing. However, Song Yu disliked kneeling on one knee, afraid that it would dirty his knee. Song Yu thought that he had already arranged 99 roses in the love circle. This kind of sincerity was something that he used to disdain. In the past, whenever he wanted a girl, that girl would obediently walk into his arms. Hence, he was determined to have Yun Jian today. Be together. Be together. Be together. At this time, someone shouted, and the surrounding people followed suit. Even the girls who usually didn't get along with Yun Jian shouted. Not only the surrounding students, but even the passers-by who saw this scene stopped, clapped their hands and shouted. The atmosphere reached its climax in an instant. Under the uproar of the surrounding girls, Song Yu saw that Yun Jian wasn't walking towards him as he expected. He lowered his eyes, pulled a smile, and looked at Yun Jian as he continued his emotional speech. Yun Jian, maybe you don't know me well enough, but I'll let you know me. You said that we're not from the same world. Today, I'll confess my identity to everyone, to you. I'm not an ordinary person. I'm the son of the Fortune Wolf Gang's leader. Like you, we're from the bloody world. That's why we're a match made in heaven. I swear, from today onwards, loving you is my life's mission. Please be my girlfriend. Song Yu had so many girlfriends, and this wasn't the first time he said such emotional words. When the surrounding girls heard Song Yu's emotional speech, they were so touched that they wished they could become Yun Jian and accept Song Yu's love. Hearing Song Yu's words, Yun Jian only wanted to sneer. Suddenly, she caught a glimpse of a girl not far away. She immediately narrowed her eyes and coldly looked at Song Yu. Are you sure we're from the same world? I'm sure. I love you. I've never given my heart to any girl before. Only you are worthy of my heart. Song Yu said without hesitation. However, before Song Yu could finish his emotional speech, Yun Jian caught a glimpse of the girl's figure behind Song Yu. Slap. The girl slapped Song Yu in the face. The girl was none other than Mo Lianhua. At this moment, Mo Lianhua looked at Song Yu in disbelief, as if she had been betrayed. I really misjudged you. I thought you were sincere to me. I didn't expect it to be you. Mo Lianhua looked sadly at Song Yu, who was standing in the love circle formed by 99 roses. As Mo Lianhua spoke, she turned her head and glared at Yun Jian as if she wanted to kill Yun Jian. She looked fierce as if Yun Jian was a mistress. At this time, Mo Lianhua no longer pretended to be pure. She glared at Yun Jian fiercely and shouted at Yun Jian, "You third party. Mistress. How can you be so shameless? Why don't you just die? Why don't you just die?" Mo Lianhua still didn't know that she was pregnant. The person who accidentally made a mistake with Yun Jian's pregnancy data sheet was Mo Lianhua. After hearing Mo Lianhua's words, Yun Jian just snorted coldly and laughed. Sometimes, even if you don't look for trouble, people will still see that you are outstanding and bully you. Did Song Yu and Mo Lianhua really think of her as an ordinary university girl? And a third party? Yun Jian didn't remember anything happening between her and Song Yu. Boring. Yun Jian spat out these words coldly and turned to leave. Yun Jian. Song Yu still wanted to persuade her to stay. However, Yun Jian had just taken 2 steps in that direction when she suddenly glanced to the left from the corner of her eye. She saw a long saber slashing towards Yun Jian at the speed of light and lightning. That speed was definitely not something an ordinary person could possess. Even a high-level assassin was far inferior. Yun Jian's eyes flashed sharply. In the next second, she directly put her hands together and pressed the long saber that was slashing towards her on both sides with her hands. At that time, the person holding the hilt had the absolute advantage. In spite of it, Yun Jian's grip on the saber's blade was unscathed even when her opponent was trying to slash her with the saber. Because the person was too fast, the surrounding people didn't have time to react. This unforeseen event was faster than the speed of light. However, 3 seconds later, Yun Jian had already snatched the long saber and kicked the person away. The person was kicked back 2 steps by Yun Jian. If it was a normal person, they would have vomited blood from Yun Jian's kick. Yun Jian didn't show any mercy. Song Yu, Mo Lianhua, and the others around them were so frightened by this sudden change that their faces turned pale. The woman who had rushed up to assassinate Yun Jian stopped in her tracks and reached out to pull at the black gloves on her hands. She smiled at Yun Jian and said, "Tisk, 006, it's been 2 years. I didn't expect you to still be so fast. But it doesn't matter. I'm here today to defeat you." The person who had come was none other than the leader of the Soul Eater organization. He was one of the 3 survivors of the Inhun organization with Yun Jian and Mad Dragon in her previous life. At the same time, he was also determined to defeat Yun Jian, Shinji. 006. Who was 006? Everyone present, led by Song Yu, was stunned and full of doubts. However, just as Song Yu, Mo Lianhua, Mo Bufan, and the others were stunned, Yun Jian, who was standing in front of everyone, revealed a terrifying smile that no one had ever seen before. Then, in front of everyone, she threw the long knife back to Shinji. After Shinji caught it, she very calmly took out the 2 butterfly knives and held them in both hands. She calmly curled her lips and said, "Let's do this." 095, this is the 609th time you've tried to assassinate me. I'll satisfy your request and fight you. However, I'll still say the same thing. In an Hun organization, you weren't my match. 2 years ago, you weren't my match. The current you is still my defeated opponent. Chapter 2038. 2 years ago, Yun Jian had been kidnapped by an assassin organization. In the end, they found out that the organization called the Soul Eater was Shinji's. And Yun Jian had accepted Shinji's challenge. Judging from Yun Jian's tone, she seemed to know the woman who'd charged at Yun Jian with a long knife. And 006. What kind of name was 095? Why did it sound like a serial number for someone in a certain troop? What were they talking about? Or did they know each other before? What are you talking about? What 006, what 095? Can you still defeat me? You've assassinated me more than 600 times. Yun Jian, I'm telling you, you is mine. You can't take him away. You're always seducing men with that foxy face of yours. Don't think I'm afraid of you. You's father is the boss of the Fortune Wolf gang. If you have any self-awareness, get the hell away from me. Otherwise, I don't care who you are. I'll kill you. Mo Lianhua's head was filled with hatred. She looked at Yun Jian, then at Shinji. She spoke with a face full of loathing and disgust. Song Yu was hers. His was hers. No one could take him away. Yun Jian held 2 shiny butterfly knives in her hands and looked at Shinji. She ignored Mo Lianhua, who was yelling at her like a madwoman. Back then, Shinji had indeed asked her for the address. She had even said that she would definitely come back and defeat her. When that long knife had suddenly appeared and slashed at her, Yun Jian had already guessed that it was Shinji. Because only Shinji could use such a fast and agile long knife. Yun Jian and Shinji were both good at knives. But the difference was that Yun Jian was good at butterfly knives, while Shinji was good at long knives. If you wanted to know why, you'd have to go back to Anhun. Back then, Yun Jian and Shinji had been trapped together with all the children who'd been captured by Anhun. In the 3rd year, the higher-ups had the children kill each other. The rules of the game were to kill everyone until only 3 people were left. Only 3 of them survived. The night before the massacre, the children were allowed to choose their own weapons. Many children chose long-range weapons like guns and ammunition because long-range weapons like guns and ammunition gave people a feeling of safety. Yun Jian and Shinji were the only ones who chose a butterfly knife and a saber. At that time, Mad Dragon had yet to join Anhun. That battle was Yun Jian and Shinji's first battle in Anhun. Nearly 100 children had slaughtered each other. In the end, only 3 had survived. All the children who chose long-range weapons like guns were killed by Yun Jian and Shinji. Only Yun Jian, Shinji, and another child survived. After the rest of the children died, an Hun organization recruited a new batch of people, and one of them was Mad Dragon. The Triennial Massacre was the unchanging rule of the Anhun organization. As long as they were in Anhun's assassin training camp, they would have to participate in a battle every 3 years. Only 3 people could survive this battle. Yun Jian and Shinji were the survivors of the first massacre. After that, and Han organization would continue to train the newly recruited children. 3 years later, these children would be allowed to fight against the 3 survivors. In this cycle, Yun Jian, Shen Ji, and Mad Dragon had all climbed out of a pile of corpses. It wasn't an exaggeration at all. As for the butterfly knife, it stayed with Yun Jian and stayed with her until the end. Shen Ji had always used a long knife. This had never changed. Back in reality, Yun Jian had known Shen Ji since she was 5. She had always seen Shen Ji as a rival. When she saw the long knife, she had guessed who it was. Mo Lianhua, don't be so ungrateful. Song Yu, who had been slapped by Mo Lianhua, pushed Mo Lianhua in front of everyone and roared. After shouting, Song Yu hurriedly stood in front of Yun Jian and stopped Shen Ji. He said to Yun Jian, I told you that we're from the same world. Don't be afraid. I'll definitely protect you. Pfft. As soon as Song Yu finished speaking, Shen Ji laughed. Protect her? Do you know who 006 is? You? And you want to protect her? Shen Ji almost choked from laughing. This was probably the funniest joke she had ever heard in her life. Chapter 2039. Shen Ji, who had planned on fighting Yun Jian again, crossed her arms and loosely placed her sword next to her arm. She looked at Song Yu with disdain and continued to laugh. Kid, do you think 006 is from the same world as you? That's the funniest joke I've ever heard in my life. Do you know who 006 is? The number of people she's killed is more than the number of arrogant words you've said in your entire life. Who do you think you are? If this was in the past, 006 would have killed you in one blow. From the same world? Don't be so funny. Do you know that back then, dozens of high-level assassins with guns and bombs faced 006 alone? 006 didn't even have a sword, but in a few minutes, she took their guns and killed everyone. She was only 14 years old. Do you know that when she faced a powerful assassin organization, not only did she not get killed, she even wiped out that famous assassin organization? Don't talk about a gang leader like you. Do you know that international black market tycoons aren't even worthy of carrying her shoes? Although she and I are mortal enemies, I, Shen Ji, will only submit to 006 in my life. Putting aside everything else, she is 006, and she is the goal I have been pursuing all my life. Wherever 006 is, that's where the international tycoons, businessmen, and politicians won't dare to sleep. That's right. Shen Ji was in awe of Yun Jian from the bottom of her heart. But at the same time, Shen Ji was very strong. She refused to admit defeat. Even if it was 1,000 times, 10,000 times, she would still refuse to admit defeat to Yun Jian. Song Yu, Mo Lianhua, Mo Bufan, Brother Kai, and everyone else were shocked by Shen Ji's words. Yun Jian was actually such a terrifying person. Who was she? But before anyone could react, Shen Ji had already walked in front of Yun Jian and kicked away Song Yu, who was 1 meter away from Yun Jian. Then, Shen Ji met Yun Jian's eyes in front of everyone. Shen Ji, who had just been speaking up for Yun Jian, suddenly changed her expression. She laughed loudly and provoked Yun Jian. However, the stronger you are, the more I, Shen Ji, want to defeat you. My only goal in this life is to surpass you. Shen Ji's words sounded like a provocation, but also like a blood oath. Hearing Shen Ji's words, the others thought that Yun Jian was probably displeased that Shen Ji said something like that as well. But just as everyone thought so, they saw Yun Jian's lips curl into a red arc as she replied to Shen Ji in front of everyone. I'll give you 10 moves to repay your kindness. Last time, when the mysterious man had been collecting puppets, Yun Jian had asked Shen Ji to stop training puppets for the mysterious man. Shen Ji had given her face. This debt of gratitude was repaid today. Then I won't hold back. Shen Ji, who had been speaking up for Yun Jian a second ago, now looked like he was dealing with an enemy. He mercilessly swung his sword at Yun Jian. The surrounding passers-by, as well as all the university students who were invited here, were so scared that they retreated to the corner. Although they didn't leave and waited to watch the show, they were still scared witless. Yunjian. Song Yu wanted to go help Yunjian, but when someone pulled him back to the corner, he pretended to be worried about Yunjian, but he didn't break free. Both Yunjian and this woman who called herself Shinji had swords in their hands. But the second before he swung his sword, he heard Shinji look at Yunjian. Then, in front of everyone, he sneered at the cowering Song Yu. "TSK, coward. Kid, 006 isn't someone a piece of trash like you can covet. You and she are from two completely different worlds. Even if you're the son of an international arms tycoon, you're dreaming if you want to be in the same world as 006. Go to hell, eh?" Chapter 2040. After Shinji taunted Song Yu in front of everyone, he turned to look at Yunjian and said faintly, "You're right. TSK, I didn't think you'd be bothered by trash like this after a few years. 006, based on your personality, it's a miracle that this guy is still alive." After Shinji had slashed at Yunjian in front of everyone, Yunjian hadn't fought back. She'd only dodged to the side. Shinji hadn't been in a hurry to attack and had started talking. Hearing Shinji's words, everyone's faces froze. Even if they were dumb, they knew that the person 006 was referring to must be Yunjian. Song Yu and Mo Lianhua, who hadn't dared to speak from the beginning, were shocked by Shinji's words. Especially Song Yu. Song Yu and Mo Lianhua didn't doubt Shinji's words at all. After all, Song Yu and Mo Lianhua had seen with their own eyes how Yunjian had killed 4 assassins at the pavilion and then ordered Dai Annie and the other 2 to kill the dozen or so assassins. Now, a woman who called herself Shinji had appeared. What she said about Yunjian was almost exactly the same as what Yunjian had described back at the pavilion. Thus, when Song Yu and Mo Lianhua heard Shinji's words, their faces paled. Unexpectedly, Yunjian didn't directly respond to Shinji's words. She raised her eyebrows slightly and said softly, 9 more moves. Just now, Yunjian had let Shinji have 1 move. She'd said she'd let Shinji have 10 moves, not 1 less. TSK, 006, you're still the same. You're so calculative about this kind of thing. Shinji squeezed the long knife in her hand and smiled. Of course I'm calculative with you. Yunjian returned Shinji's cold smile. Shinji tightened her grip on the long knife and suddenly walked to the side. I don't like being watched like a monkey. Let's go to an open space to fight. With that, Shinji left the crowd and walked to an open space halfway up the mountain. Seeing this, Yunjian put away her butterfly knife and followed Shinji. Let's go and cheer for Yunjian. Mo Bufan didn't understand the relationship between Yunjian and Shinji, nor did he understand what they were talking about. However, he called the others from the martial arts club and quickly followed. Zhu Huili naturally followed. Brother Kai led a group of people and followed of them. Let's go. Miao Li and Shi Xiujuan. Song Yu cast a sidelong glance at Mo Lianhua and wanted to chase after her. Of course, I was wrong. Of course. I'm of Mize, please give me another chance. I beg you. Mo Lianhua grabbed Song Yu's hand and begged. The last time Mo Lianhua hid it from Song Yu, she had secretly torn the condom when they were having an affair. After Song Yu found out, he was so angry that he yelled at Mo Lianhua that he would break up with her if she got pregnant. Mo Lianhua went to the hospital for a checkup. Only then did she confidently tell Song Yu that she wasn't pregnant. She wanted Song Yu to give her another chance. But now that Song Yu had taken a liking to Yunjian, he didn't want to go back. He pushed Mo Lianhua away and ran in the direction that Yunjian had left. He didn't even look at Mo Lianhua. Mo Lianhua angrily chased after him. Gu Nianji, who was staying in the same hotel as Li Nong, didn't know that they were staying in the same hotel. That night, Yunjian wasn't there. Gu Nianji was bored and decided to walk around Jianghu City. She wanted to walk around mainly because she was too hungry. She hadn't even had dinner yet. Therefore, when she came out of the hotel room, Gunyanji skipped and ran quickly. When she passed by the corner of the hotel, Gunyanji ran too fast and bumped into a wall of flesh. She hissed and rubbed her head. Just as she was about to raise her head and scold the person who had come over for being blind, Gunyanji stopped. She saw Li Nong standing in front of her. Li Nong glanced at Gunyanji from the corner of his eyes. He obviously knew that Gunyanji was staying in this hotel. Then, the words that came out of Li Nong's mouth made Gunyanji want to tear his mouth apart on the spot. However, he had a cold expression on his face. On the outside, he said to Gunyanji, "What a coincidence. I was just about to look for you. The last time you sat on my lap, I felt very comfortable. Your butt is so springy and fleshy. I like it very much. Can you let me touch it again, eh?" Chapter 2041. Last time, Gunyanji accidentally fell into Li Nong's arms and even threw him to the ground. She sat on his lap. The feeling of flesh was something Li Nong had never felt before. Therefore, when Gunyanji didn't react or even notice, Li Nong reached out and held her buttocks with both hands. He touched them and felt the woman's flesh. Li Nong liked this touch very much, so he wandered around the hotel for a few days. Today, he finally saw Gunyanji. As soon as he saw her, she rashly bumped into his arms again. Her fleshy chest and enchanting figure made Li Nong swallow a mouthful of saliva. Therefore, the well-dressed Li Nong couldn't help but say such words. "I like it very much. Can you let me touch it again?" In the past, Li Nong was on the same side as the gods on the God continent. However, Li Nong was talented and had a low status. Those gods never gave Li Nong face and didn't even want to talk to him. If Li Nong was talented and had a low status, those gods would probably rush to talk to Li Nong. After all, to them, standing together with a piece of trash could highlight their status and nobility. In the God continent, Li Nong was isolated, which meant that he didn't have much contact with the gods, let alone female gods. Li Nong didn't even know that it was common sense not to touch a woman's buttocks. However, Gunyanji, who called herself a matchmaker in the Yulong continent, knew. What did you say?" Gunyanji first hugged her chest with her hands, then suddenly realized that Li Nong wanted to touch her buttocks. She then put her hands under her waist to protect her buttocks. Then, she looked at Li Nong with a covetous expression, as if to say, "If you dare touch my buttocks, I will definitely teach you a lesson. Pervert. I'm telling you, if you dare touch a single hair on my head, I will never let you off." Gunyanji protected her buttocks and shouted at Li Nong. Seeing Gunyanji holding her buttocks as if she was protecting her life, Li Nong frowned and asked, "Why? Why? Why are you still asking why? Are all the gods on the God continent so shameless?" "Shameless." Gunyanji's cheeks were red. She looked at Li Nong and shouted these words with a red face. As she spoke, Gunyanji wanted to turn around and walk around to get out of the shameless Li Nong's field of vision. "Do you want to go to the divine continent?" Suddenly, Li Nong's magnetic male voice sounded from behind Gunyanji. Gunyanji didn't turn around because she was attracted by the pleasant and magnetic voice, but because she heard what Li Nong said. She suddenly stopped in her tracks, then stuck her head out and slowly turned her head back to look at him. Facts proved that Li Nong's words were very tempting. "Can you really take me to the divine continent?" Gunyanji couldn't help swallowing when she heard this and asked again. "Yes." Li Nong nodded. One had to know that to the people of the myriad continents, going to the gods' continent was their lifelong wish. After all, to the people of the myriad continents, the gods' continent was a place limited to legends. If they were able to travel around the gods' continent, some of the people on the myriad continents would die without regrets. "Really? Are you telling the truth? Then bring me there quickly." Gunyanji clasped her hands, which were covering her buttocks, and put them by her mouth. She pouted and looked at Li Nong with her little eyes blinking. "Gunyanji, who had just called herself sister, instantly turned into a little woman. My condition just now. Li Nong mentioned it. Gu Nianji clenched her fists and waved them in a place where Li Nong couldn't see. Then she said weakly, then I can only do it once. Once. As soon as Gu Nianji agreed softly, Li Nong, Chapter 2042. In order to go to Deity Continent, Gu Nianji had sold herself out. Of course, she was only selling herself out. It was just a touch, it was not like she would lose a piece of flesh. When she came back from visiting Deity Continent, she was going to beat this pervert to death. Sister Jian had actually taken in such a pervert as her disciple. At the same time, in the hotel hallway, Gu Nianji shut her eyes tightly as Li Nong wrapped his arms around her and placed his long hands on her butt. Ah, this pervert really dared to touch her butt. Gu Nianji was as red as an apple. Are you done? Gu Nianji covered her face, not daring to look at Li Nong. If she opened her eyes now, she would be able to gaze at Li Nong's chest. Right now, Gu Nianji's face and Li Nong's chest were only separated by her hand. Gu Nianji's hand was pressed against Li Nong's chest. Li Nong's chest was facing Gu Nianji as he wrapped his arm around her waist and placed his hand on her butt. Just as Gu Nianji urged Li Nong to stop and even pushed him away to tell him that it was enough, Li Nong's hand on Gu Nianji's butt grabbed. Ah! Gu Nianji cried out involuntarily. When she reacted, she pushed Li Nong away and looked at him in disbelief with a flushed face. I already said it's only for a while. How could you? Very soft, Li Nong commented. Gu Nianji's face flushed again. Alright, hurry up and take me to Deity Continent. Gu Nianji said. Not now. Li Nong tilted his head and turned his handsome side profile in front of Gu Nianji. You're going back on your word. Gu Nianji was still embarrassed. Li Nong turned his head and presented his handsome face to Gu Nianji. The next second, he didn't say anything. He walked over and grabbed Gu Nianji's hand. Not long after, he brought Gu Nianji back to her hotel room. The venue of the gathering where Jianghu City's top gang had sent out invitations. Yun Jian and Shen Ji had just arrived at a spacious area. The people who had followed Yun Jian and Shen Ji also followed them here. Shen Ji had just arrived, and Yun Jian was still following. Suddenly, Shen Ji grabbed his sword and swung it at Yun Jian. When the agents fought, every move was fatal. As a special agent, what they learned was nothing more than how to kill a person in the fastest way possible. It didn't matter if it was an assassination or a dirty trick, as long as he could kill the other party, it was fine. He watched as Yun Jian and Shen Ji walked into the open space and started fighting before they even said anything. Everyone who came over to take a look was stunned. F***CK. He actually attacked without saying anything. Are these two women even human? His attack speed is so fast. He must have learned some martial arts. The surrounding boys broke out in a cold sweat as they watched Yun Jian and Shen Ji fight. At that moment, Yun Jian quickly gave Shen Ji 10 moves. The real battle between the two had only just begun. What's going on? Song Fan, who was walking over with his old friends, asked when he saw Yun Jian and Shen Ji fighting. They said they're going to fight to see who wins, someone replied to Song Fan. As the leader of a gang in Jianghu, Song Fan couldn't help but observe Yun Jian and Shen Ji seriously. He watched as Yun Jian started to attack after defending for 10 moves. Look at her. That girl's going to fight back. I heard she's the president of the martial arts club. Something interesting is about to happen, haha. Someone couldn't help but get excited when he saw this. But just as everyone's excited voices died down, Yun Jian and Shen Ji's figures went from the initial quick exchange to the speed at which they exchanged moves so fast that they couldn't be seen with the naked eye. Seeing this scene, everyone's jaws dropped. Just as everyone's hearts tightened, Yun Jian had already used her butterfly knife to deflect Shen Ji's long sword. Shen Ji's long sword was flung dozens of meters away. Then, she moved sideways and circled behind Shen Ji. At the same time, Yunjian's butterfly knife was pressed against Shinji's back, where his heart was. You lost. Yunjian's crisp voice echoed throughout the arena. Yunjian and Shinji had only been fighting for a minute. When experts fought, every move was fatal. The stronger they were, the faster they exchanged moves. Even though it was only a minute, Yunjian and Shinji had already exchanged hundreds of moves. Neither of them showed any mercy. Anyone who could exchange hundreds of moves with Yunjian was undoubtedly the best in the world. 006, 2 years have passed. You're even stronger than before. Shinji chuckled with Yunjian's butterfly knife pressed against his back. You've improved a lot too. Yunjian sheathed her knife. If 2 years isn't enough, then 10 years. 006, I'll definitely surpass you. Shinji said as he walked towards his long sword. He planned to pick it up and leave. Yunjian admired Shinji's unyielding spirit. She looked at Shinji's back and said in front of everyone, whether it's 10 years or 20 years, I'll be waiting. But as always, you'll always be my defeated opponent. Shinji snorted and bent down to pick up his sword. However, at that moment, a middle-aged man standing next to Song Fan suddenly pointed at Shinji's sword and said in a trembling voice, That sword. That sword. The mark on the sword. Song Fan, could it be that the woman your son is fighting with is Shura Shinji, number 2 on the assassin ranking? Legend has it that Shura Shinji has only ever taken one person as her opponent. That person is Slaying God, number 1 on the international secret agent ranking. That girl, could it be, A? Chapter 2043. Could that young lady be the legendary number 1 on the international secret agent ranking, the one who shakes the world with her name, Slaying God? The middle-aged man standing next to Song Fan spoke in a voice that everyone present could hear clearly. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone present was shocked. What? The number 1 on the international secret agent ranking? Mo Lianhua's eyes were wide open as she stared at Yunjian in disbelief. She did not know what the number 1 on the international secret agent ranking signified. However, Mo Lianhua, Song Yu, Mo Bufan, and everyone else did not see wrongly. The middle-aged man standing next to Song Fan gulped when he heard the word Slaying God. Just the mention of that name was enough to make him tremble in fear. After he said the word Slaying God, he took 2 big steps back because he suspected that Yunjian was that person. He hid himself in a corner before he dared to say the 2 words that sent chills down his spine. Uncle Zhang. What did you say? Song Yu's expression changed when he heard what the middle-aged man said. He looked at the middle-aged man and asked loudly in front of everyone. The middle-aged man whom Song Yu called Uncle Zhang was the one who had pointed out Yunjian's identity in front of everyone. Uncle Zhang was an old friend of Song Yu's father, Song Fan. At the same time, he was also a big shot in the black market. Usually, when Song Yu was by Song Fan's side, he always saw this Uncle Zhang as solemn and dignified. Even if someone greeted him, Uncle Zhang was a calm and composed person who would only nod slightly. However, he saw something in Uncle Zhang's expression just now. Song Yu saw Uncle Zhang, who had always been calm and composed, show a frightened expression just now. That was enough to prove that the number 1 on the international secret agent ranking, Slaying God, was a terrifying existence. Yunjian, who was a distance away, did not expect anyone to recognize Shinji's saber. Shinji's saber had been with her for more than 10 years. Moreover, the saber was engraved with her unique Ji character, which could not be imitated by outsiders. Seeing the saber was like seeing the number 2 assassin on the international assassin ranking, Shinji. One had to know one thing. The 3 survivors from Anhun back then, Slaying God, Shinji, and Mad Dragon, were all top figures on the international secret agent assassin chart. Yunjian aside, Shinji was ranked 2nd on the assassin ranking. Her strength was shocking, and her completion rate of missions was second only to Yunjian. She was also an existence that made people panic just by hearing her name. Mad Dragon, ranked 3rd on the International Secret Service rankings, codenamed God of War. Mad Dragon was famous for his strength. He wasn't much weaker than Yunjian and Shinji. But in terms of speed, Yunjian was better than him, and it was because of this that Mad Dragon would never be able to surpass Yunjian. There was no doubt that the three men who had survived in Han were the top assassins on the international secret agent ranking list. This was also the reason why Han had such an important position in this world. What? Old Zhang, what did you say? Shinji, the number 2 assassin in the world? Slaying God, the number 1 on the international secret agent ranking. How is this possible? They're so young, how could they be such terrifying figures? Even Song Fan revealed a frightened and surprised expression in front of everyone. That's impossible, but that saber. Uncle Zhang immediately shook his head, refuting Yunjian and Shinji's terrifying identities in front of everyone. But he couldn't figure it out. If Shinji wasn't the legendary number 2 assassin on the assassin ranking list, then why? Why would she have this saber? Shinji saw Song Fan, Uncle Zhang, and the rest's terrified expressions, as well as the surrounding students' pale faces. She laughed out loud, and when she saw that everyone's expressions became even more panicked, she found it amusing and admitted her identity in front of everyone. Ha ha ha, since you've seen it, I won't hide it from you. That's right, I am, a. Chapter 2044. I'm Shinji, number 2 on the assassin ranking. However, before Shinji could finish his sentence, Yunjian, who had walked up from behind Shinji, elbowed Shinji's waist. With this retort, Shinji swallowed back the words he had been about to spit out. 006, if she's Shinji, number 2 on the international assassin ranking, she would have been stupid enough to be killed. Otherwise, why would she be weaker than me? Yunjian continued Shinji's words and walked up to the crowd. Then, Yunjian's eyes flashed sharply. She pursed her red lips and continued in front of the crowd. Her name is Shinji, but it's just a coincidence. Or do you believe that I, who just turned 18, am the number 1 on the international secret agent ranking, slaying God? Yunjian's words calmed the rowdy crowd down completely. That was right, she was only 18. Although the crowd did not know slaying God's age, she should be in her 30s or 40s to have such a battle record. Moreover, how could slaying God, who was number 1 on the international secret agent ranking, be a woman? No matter what, she should be a strong man, right? If that was the case, it was impossible for Shinji to be number 2 on the international assassin ranking. Song Fan, Uncle Zhang, and everyone around them heaved a sigh of relief at the same time. The president of our martial arts club is amazing. This is the glory of our martial arts club. Long live the president. Mo Buffon saw that the opportunity was ripe and shouted at Yunjian. From now on, our martial arts club will follow President Yunjian to our deaths. Mo Buffon's shout made the members of the martial arts club around them lift their heads proudly and shout. In a short while, the martial arts club's shouts echoed throughout the hall. We will follow President Yunjian to our deaths. We will follow President Yunjian to our deaths. Perhaps Yunjian's ability was too shocking, but the martial arts club was now proud of Yunjian. Such a grand occasion was something that had never happened before. Seeing this, everyone present was shocked by the scene. Indeed, Yunjian was definitely not an international secret agent. Otherwise, why would she be here? This was simply impossible. However, it was definitely not easy for a girl to subdue everyone in the martial arts club and make so many people accept her wholeheartedly. Shinji blinked. In the end, he didn't say anything. He picked up his long knife and left. Since 006 doesn't want to expose her identity, she naturally has to give this face. It seemed that she, Shinji, wasn't qualified. However, she would never give up. Unless she died. Otherwise, she would definitely surpass 006. Even if she couldn't surpass him, she would make it her life's goal. She would never stop improving her strength. This was a tacit understanding between Yunjian and Shinji. No one could be missing. Because the two of them, ever since Yunjian was 5 years old in her previous life, they had regarded each other as mortal enemies. With the intention of surpassing each other, they progressed together and became the top existence that countless people could not touch. Let's work together and grow together. On the other side, Gu Nianji, who had been dragged into her hotel room by Li Nong, refused to go in no matter what. In the end, Li Nong simply carried her in horizontally. Why are you letting go of me? Don't think you can bully me just because you're a god. Sister Xiaoxin will tell my sister Jian to deal with you. You didn't do what you promised me. Gu Nianji struggled, but Li Nong threw her face down onto the bed. By then, the door was already closed. However, she felt a pair of perverted hands caressing and even scratching her buttocks from behind her waist. Li Nong's calm but infuriating voice came from behind Gu Nianji. It was not asking for Gu Nianji's permission but directly taking action, acting first and reporting later. You're from myriad continents. It's not easy to stay in Deity Continent. For your safety, I'll protect you as long as you let me touch you again, eh? Chapter 2045. As he said that, Li Nong grabbed another handful in a righteous manner. Ah. Don't grab me again, I'm begging you. I'm begging you, please. Gu Nianji was pressed against the bed with her stomach facing down. Li Nong was using his slender right leg to block her legs, and his hands continued to grab her. Pervert. Shameless. I still have to get married in the future. How can I get married like this? Ah, you pervert. Gu Nianji was being ravaged. Because her back was facing the ceiling, her legs were pinned down. Gu Nianji raised her head and tried to use the strength of her shoulders to arch up. But she was no match for Li Nong. Although they were on Earth and couldn't use the spiritual power of the mainland, Li Nong was much stronger than Gu Nianji. It was clear that Li Nong didn't completely rely on spiritual power on the divine continent. He also added a lot of requirements for physique and physical fitness. So Gu Nianji was naturally no match for him. Gu Nianji shouted, I still have to get married in the future. How can I get married like this? Li Nong's hand, which had been on Gu Nianji's butt, froze. Li Nong froze. Get married? She still had to get married? Gu Nianji turned her head and saw that Li Nong froze when he heard what she said. She gathered her strength and raised her head to push Li Nong away forcefully. Then she quickly stood up and turned around to glare fiercely at Li Nong before running out the door. Just as she ran out the door, Li Nong caught her hand again. What are you doing? I'm starving. I'm going to eat. Gu Nianji felt wronged when she said this. She hadn't even eaten dinner, and this pervert was touching her all over. I'll take you to eat. Li Nong didn't mess around this time. He grabbed Gu Nianji's hand and took her downstairs to eat like a boy in love. On Yunjian's end. After Shenji left, everything seemed to return to its original calm. After that, nothing major happened. However, everyone still stuck to their original plan and played a round of balloon shooting, darts, and other games. Yunjian didn't participate. Instead, she stood beside Zhu Huili and taught her how to shoot and throw darts. Yunjian, you also know how to shoot and throw darts. At this moment, Mo Bufan could no longer use the word worship to describe his reverence towards Yunjian. He moved to Yunjian's side and spoke with great respect. This was an affirmative statement. He didn't suspect that Yunjian knew how to play games like guns and darts. Yunjian merely pursed her lips indifferently. With Yunjian's guidance, Zhu Huili managed to hit a medium-sized doll. Out of a dozen shots, he only missed once. Zhu Huili had never hit so many balloons before. When he got the big doll, Zhu Huili jumped excitedly and hugged Yunjian's neck. He was so excited that he couldn't control himself. In the end, until the end of the party, nothing else happened that was worth mentioning. Yunjian and Mo Bufan left in the opposite direction. Song Yu was staring fixedly at Yunjian's slender figure, unable to return to his senses for a long time. Mo Lianhua stood to the side and watched as Song Yu stared fixedly at Yun Jian. She couldn't help but feel angry. Song Yu didn't give up his pursuit of Yun Jian. Mo Lianhua didn't dare to stop Song Yu now, but she had the urge to kill Yun Jian. Both of them had their own ulterior motives. About half a month had passed since that day's party. On this day, Mo Bufan, as the vice president of the martial arts club, received news that Jianghu City would hold a martial arts competition soon. Anyone who was a fan of martial arts could sign up. Because it wasn't a competition sponsored by the school, but an event organized by Jianghu City, the school's martial arts club had the freedom to participate. However, Mo Bufan would lead everyone to participate in this martial arts competition every year. Moreover, the opponents of their martial arts club weren't people from society. They were martial arts clubs from other schools. At this time, Yun Jian was standing in the martial arts club and speaking to the members. On the eve of the martial arts competition, I will strengthen your training these days, eh? Chapter 2046. In the past, Mo Bufan would lead the members of the martial arts club to strengthen their training whenever the competition was about to begin. However, the person leading the martial arts club this year was not Mo Bufan, but Yun Jian. Yun Jian's words were echoed by most of the members of the martial arts club. For the competition, we're not afraid of any hardship or exhaustion. President, please increase the difficulty of our training. That's right. This time, we must trample the members of the martial arts club from Eastern University under our feet. Haha. With the president around, there won't be a problem. Last year, the martial arts club from Eastern University won first place, the Green Bull gang from Dragon City University won second place, and we're only third. Now that the president of the Green Bull gang has been killed by the president, as long as we defeat the martial arts club from Eastern University, the first place will belong to us. After Yun Jian finished speaking, the members of the martial arts club were in high spirits. The atmosphere at the scene was soon hyped up. Everyone in the martial arts club had witnessed Yun Jian's skills and strength. At that time, their admiration and trust for Yun Jian had been deeply ingrained in the hearts of the members of the martial arts club. I'll sign up for the martial arts competition tomorrow. In addition, the martial arts club that signs up for this year's competition needs to provide a club name. Everyone, think about what kind of club name our martial arts club should provide. At that time, Mo Bufan held a martial arts competition form in his hand and spoke to the crowd. How about the Invincible Gang? Isn't this name loud enough? Immediately, a boy mischievously said. Pfft! Invincible Gang? What's the difference between that and the Green Bull Gang? Our martial arts club can't have such a tacky name. It's degrading our status. The members of the martial arts club discussed animatedly. Why don't we ask the president to help us come up with a name? Zhou Huntao blinked and looked at Yun Jian. Yes, yes. Let the president do it. The president is the spiritual pillar of our club now. That's right. Immediately, someone agreed with Zhou Huntao. At that time, Yun Jian, who was surrounded by everyone, blinked her eyes. Are you sure you want me to come up with a name? Seeing this, Yun raised her eyebrows slightly and said. Yes, yes. President, you're the best. A boy named Zhou Dun looked at Yun Jian and shouted. Zhou Dun was the fattest boy in the martial arts club. His body was like a meatball, and he walked unsteadily. He was a typical fat guy. As soon as Zhou Dun finished speaking, no one had any objections. Thus, everyone handed the name of the martial arts club to Yun Jian. Bang! At this moment, the mysterious door outside the martial arts club was kicked open. The person walked in angrily. After taking a few things from the martial arts club, she left angrily. Senior Huiling? Senior Sister Huiling is back. Where are you going, Senior Huiling? The person who returned was Kai Huiling. Kai Huiling was the third-year senior Yun Jian had pushed Zhu Huili when she first entered the university. Later, Yun Jian had stepped on her. Kai Huiling entered the martial arts society because of Mo Bufan. Since she was stepped on by Yun Jian in public last time, Kai Huiling had not appeared in school or the martial arts club for a long time. Kai Huiling, who appeared at that time, glared at Yun Jian fiercely and said to everyone, "I want to leave the club. This kind of person is the president of our martial arts club. Sooner or later, she will be finished. Mo Bufan, you will regret it." Kai Huiling closed her eyes and shouted angrily at Mo Bufan. Then, she turned around and ran away. She was probably still expecting Mo Bufan to chase her back. Many girls who still stayed in the martial arts club had a good relationship with Kai Huiling. But at that time, when they saw Kai Huiling run out after saying those words to Yun Jian, no one chased after her. Senior sister Huiling is really too much this time. Yes. Our new president is really amazing. Anyway, this time, I will definitely stand on our new president's side. After Kai Huiling left, the girls in the martial arts club still turned to Yun Jian's side. This was Yun Jian's charm. At that time, Yun Jian had already become the god in the eyes of the boys and girls in the martial arts club without her saying anything. Shrine. Just when everyone was talking about what Kai Huiling said before she ran away, Yun Jian suddenly raised her red lips and said in public, "Is this the name of our martial arts club?" Mo Bufan heard it and asked Yun Jian on behalf of everyone. However, Yun Jian, who was standing in front of everyone, nodded. The slightly raised red arc deepened again. She pursed her lips and explained in public why the club was named Shrine. The god of Jiangcheng, the only club. Therefore, Shrine. A. Chapter 2047. The god of Rivertown, the only club. The god of Rivertown belonged to the martial arts club led by Yun Jian. The words that came out of Yun Jian's mouth made everyone present unable to calm down. Shrine. This was a name that did not allow for defeat. Whether it was in the martial arts club or in other fields, as long as the shrine was led by Yun Jian, then it was not allowed to fail. First place belonged to none other than them. It took a long time for everyone to recover from the shock of Yun Jian's words. At that time, they all felt sluggish for a moment. These two words gave everyone a feeling of supremacy and supremacy. I, the unique and righteous. Good. Good name. Our martial arts club will be called Shrine in the future. The god of Rivertown, the only club. These 8 words will be the slogan of our shrine. After Mo Bufan heard this, there was a rush of excitement in his heart. In front of everyone, he repeated the name that Yun Jian had given and the meaning behind it. At that time, after hearing Mo Bufan's words, everyone's heart was boiling with excitement. Okay. Listen to the president. Whatever the president says. Everyone agreed unanimously. Unknowingly, everyone in the martial arts club had already regarded Yun Jian as the core. The martial arts club's competition is about 1.5 months later. Now that there is still 1.5 months for us to train, we must strengthen our training progress. In this 1.5 months, as long as you are free, come to the martial arts club. Work hard and think about the competition. If you get first place in the competition, there will be a reward of 30,000 yuan. If you can get this reward, it will be divided equally among everyone. So, everyone, work hard for 1.5 months. Come on. Mo Bufan encouraged everyone for a while. In fact, Mo Bufan's family was so rich that it was naturally impossible for them to lack this 30,000 yuan. On the contrary, this martial arts club could be set up by Mo Bufan himself. Otherwise, the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China did not have any extra space to provide for the martial arts club. Mo Bufan really liked martial arts. There is a reward? Haha. My motivation is here again. The first place of this martial arts competition belongs to our shrine. Sure enough, when they heard that there was a reward, everyone's fighting spirit became stronger. In the next few days, the members of the martial arts club really worked hard. Whatever Yun Jian said, they did it. 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. At the end of November, the weather had become very cold. In places like Jianghu City where winter came earlier, many students had already put on thick cotton-padded jackets. At the end of the month, the school arranged exams. Yunjian left the exam hall early after she was done with her question. University was different from junior high and high school. If you left after you finished your paper, the teacher wouldn't say anything. At most, the teacher would ask you if you were sure you wanted to hand in your paper. She was wearing a light blue down jacket. It was an ordinary piece of clothing, but it accentuated her figure. At the same time, Yunjian shoved her phone and both her hands into her pockets as she made her way to the university gate. He had just sent her a message. He was waiting for her at the entrance of the university. Yunjian was stopped by Song Yu, who had just come from the University of the East, when Yunjian walked out of the gate. Yunjian. As he spoke, Song Yu ran to Yunjian with a rose in each hand. Ever since the gathering, Song Yu had been sending roses to Yunjian every day without missing a single day. However, Yunjian never paid attention to it, let alone accepted it. Mo Lianhua watched Song Yu run towards Yunjian. She was in a daze and was supported by Pan Qian. This little B***tch. She doesn't accompany her rich, short, and fat boyfriend. She seduces Mr. Song every day. She's two-timing. Disgusting. Pan Qian said angrily after supporting Mo Lianhua. However, just as Pan Qian finished speaking, she suddenly saw Song Yu happily walk to Yunjian's side. But then, a handsome man arrived in front of Yunjian before Song Yu. After that, the handsome man wrapped his arm around Yunjian's slim waist and shot a murderous glance at Song Yu, who was holding a bouquet of roses in his hand and looked pathetic in comparison to him. Such a handsome man. He hugged Yunjian's slender waist in front of everyone. Mo Lianhua and Pan Qian were drooling. Who was he? How could there be such a handsome man in this world? Who are you? Why are you hugging my woman? Song Yu saw Ce suddenly appear. He looked at Yunjian angrily and shouted at Ce. He looked as if he had already won Yunjian's heart. Your woman? Ce frowned when he heard it. When did my wife become your woman? Ce hugged Yunjian's slender waist tighter. Wife? Mo Lianhua and Pan Qian, who were far away, exclaimed in shock. No, that's impossible. Are you Yunjian's short, fat boyfriend? Song Yu shook his head in disbelief. He was short, fat, and fat? Ce's handsome brows creased slightly. Before Song Yu could react, Ce was already smiling. After showing off his and Xiao Jian's marriage certificate in country R, Song Yu, Mo Lianhua, and Pan Qian were shocked. Ce took out the pregnancy test he had taken from the hospital last time. There was an error on the pregnancy test, but the words, pregnancy confirmed, were still there. Ce held the pregnancy test between his slender fingers and showed it to Song Yu, Mo Lianhua, and Pan Qian. Then, while Song Yu and Pan Qian looked like they had eaten **T, Ce continued his lie that was so thick-skinned that even a gun could not penetrate. Xiao Jian is already pregnant with my child, Chapter 2048. Yunjian glanced at the pregnancy test slip in Ce's hand and blushed. She did not expect him to hide the paper. Yunjian had a bad feeling that this piece of paper might very well replace the country our marriage certificate. No, that's impossible. This has to be fake. It's fake. Song Yu shook his head as he held the rose in his hand. Yunjian, I made a love circle with 99 roses for you the last time and sent you roses every day for so many days. I can swear to the heavens that I love you. How can you not understand my love for you? Song Yu looked at Yunjian as if Yunjian had betrayed him and gotten together with Ce. Yunjian's lips curled into a scornful smirk. The man had even placed a love circle with 99 roses for Xiao Jian? Ce, who was not that jealous just now, was instantly envious. Ce had no intention of killing Song Yu just now, but Ce's brows were furrowed as a murderous intent spread from Ce. Song Yu, Mo Lianhua, and Pan Qian could not help feeling a chill run down their spines. Before Ce could make a move, Yun Jian had already wrapped her arms around Ce's chest. Her head could only reach Ce's chin as Yun Jian pressed the side of her face against Ce's chest. The scene was so loving that Song Yu could not take his eyes off it. That was not all. Yun Jian did it in front of Song Yu, Mo Lianhua, and Pan Qian, who had initially said that Ce was a short, chubby rich kid and was now dumbfounded. She tiptoed and raised her hand to grab Ce's collar like a kitten scratching an itch, causing Ce to bend down. She, on the other hand, brought her red lips to Ce's and offered a kiss in front of everyone. After a light peck, Yun Jian pressed the side of her face against Ce's chest again. After the action that was more intimate than a couple's, Yun Jian cooperated with Ce and said something that nearly angered the trio. "We're already married. Love is a matter between husband and wife. It's reasonable even if I'm pregnant. What's wrong with that?" Yun Jian spoke smoothly. Ce, who could feel Yun Jian's face pressing against his chest, broke into a smile when he heard her words. His Xiao Jian knew how to say something so touching too. The words love between a man and a woman, matters between husband and wife, and pregnancy struck Song Yu's heart like a thunderclap. Mo Lianhua had long forgotten that Song Yu was pursuing Yun Jian. She kept her eyes on Ce, unable to believe that this man who was more handsome than any man who walked out of a comic was Yun Jian's boyfriend. The legendary short and fat man. Pan Qian was rooted to the spot in shock as well. Could someone tell her why Yun Jian's boyfriend was so handsome? No, handsome was not even the word to describe him. He was so handsome that it was impossible to find a second person like him in this world. His handsome face that looked like it was sculpted with chiseled features was flawless. When he stood next to Yun Jian, one was handsome while the other was as beautiful as jade. There was no flaw to pick out. Mo Lianhua and Pan Qian were envious of the scene. Even so, there's no one more compatible than us in this world. Yun Jian, you have to be mine. Look, you're from the bloody world too. So am I. My dad's the boss of River City's top mafia group. Come with me, I won't despise you. Even if you're pregnant with someone else's child, you just have to abort it. Even after listening to Shinji's words and knowing this now, Song Yu refused to let go. As he spoke, Song Yu reached out to grab Yun Jian's wrist. However, before his hand could touch Yun Jian, he was sent flying more than 10 meters away with a kick. The one who did it was undoubtedly Ce. After sending Song Yu flying more than 10 meters away with a kick, Ce's murderous intent flared. He glared coldly at Song Yu, who was about to spit blood, and warned him icily. Song Yu, who had fallen to the ground, was so shocked that his heart was pounding. How dare you covet my woman? The top mafia group in River City, huh? Very well, your father's gang is now in an Han group's must-kill list, eh? Chapter 2049. Ce's words were like the summons of the King of Hell. His voice reached Song Yu, Mo Lianhua, and Pan Qian's ears. Mo Lianhua and Pan Qian almost screamed when they saw Ce's kick. So handsome. They had never seen a man as handsome as Ce in their lives. When Song Yu was sent flying with a kick just now, Ce had done it with half of his arm around Yun Jian. Ce's words almost made Mo Lianhua and Pan Qian scream like love-struck girls. But in the end, they held it in. Mo Lianhua originally wanted to kill Yun Jian because of Song Yu's confession to Yun Jian. But now, Mo Lianhua didn't even want to look at Song Yu. If possible, she wanted to trade with Yun Jian. However, unlike Mo Lianhua and Pan Qian, although Song Yu didn't participate in the matters of his father's gang, he had heard a lot about it from his father. In the underworld, the last people to provoke weren't international mafia bosses, nor were they international arms magnates. Compared to these two organizations, all the international mafia bosses and international arms magnates had to step aside. And these two organizations were an Han organization and Kosha mercenaries. Anyone who provoked these two forces would be standing directly on top of a coffin, separated from the Grim Reaper by a distance of 0 meters. Song Yu was no stranger to an Han organization's must-kill list. Song Yu's father, Song Fan, had warned Song Yu in a very strict manner that anyone who was listed on an Han organization's must-kill list would become a wanted criminal of an Han organization. In the future, as long as an Han organization's assassins or secret agents saw them, they would directly eliminate the wanted person or organization with a bounty. One had to know that an Han organization's assassins and secret agents had the ability to wipe out a gang. When Song Yu first heard this, he was so scared that his face turned green and purple. He even swore that he would never provoke an Han organization in his life. But what did he just hear? He actually heard CE say that his father's gang was already listed on an Han organization's must-kill list. Mayan Han organization? CE's words made Song Yu's eyes widen. Why you're from the Han organization? Song Yu was sent flying more than 10 meters away. At this moment, he didn't have time to get angry, nor did he have time to cover the place where he was hurt. He stared at CE with wide eyes. Although Mo Lianhua and Pan Qian didn't know what was going on when they saw how fearful Song Yu was of the Han organization, they were even more mesmerized by CE's handsomeness. At that moment, Mo Sun, who was standing not far away, walked over from the side. Young master, the number 1 gang in Rivertown has been added to the must-kill list. Mo Sun did as he was told when he heard CE's words. CE shifted her gaze from Song Yu to Yunjian. Then, in front of Song Yu and the others, he took Yunjian's small hand and turned to leave. Song Yu was completely paralyzed on the ground. Mo Lianhua and Pan Qian wanted to chase after him, but they were frightened by Mo Sen's fierce eyes. At the same time, CE was holding Yunjian's hand as they walked down the street. Xiao Jian, why are your hands so cold? CE asked softly as he felt Yunjian's icy hands. Yunjian adjusted the light blue down jacket she was wearing and answered, I just finished my test paper in the classroom. She had been holding a pen when she was doing her test paper. Of course, her hands were cold in this wintry weather. CE frowned slightly at that and pulled Yunjian to a milk tea shop without another word to order a cup of milk tea for Yunjian to warm her hands. Before the milk tea was ready, CE held Yunjian's small hand in his large one to keep Yunjian warm. The shop owner passed the milk tea to CE and quickly passed the hot milk tea to Yunjian to warm up her cold hands. The shop owner could not help exclaiming at the sight. Young man, there aren't many college students who spoil their girlfriends like you. The shop owner thought that CE would be smug about how he spoiled his girlfriend, but instead, CE frowned and explained in annoyance, my girlfriend isn't my girlfriend. We're married. She's my wife, eh? Chapter 2050. CE was upset when he heard the milk tea shop owner say that Yunjian was only his girlfriend. When the milk tea shop owner heard CE's explanation, his expression froze for a moment. Then, he immediately put on an I know everything attitude. He didn't believe that CE and Yunjian were married. However, the shop owner believed that CE completely doted on Yunjian. The weather was so cold that it felt like winter. The passers-by on the street didn't even want to take their hands out of their pockets. However, CE used his large palms to warm Yunjian's icy cold hands. When the milk tea was ready, he immediately handed it to her. The shop owner was experienced and had a wife whom he loved deeply. He nodded with a smile. Although he believed that CE and Yunjian's marriage was fake, he still nodded as though he believed it. He looked at Yunjian and couldn't help but sigh. Miss, you have a husband who loves you deeply. Since you're a couple, then live well together. Hee, play when it's time to play, and study hard when it's time to study. The shop owner looked kindly at Yunjian and CE as he exhorted them. The shop owner thought that Yunjian and CE were both university students and that he was only in his 40s. However, his kind expression made him seem like an old man in his 50s or 60s who was carefully exhorting the younger generation. When Yunjian heard the shop owner's words, she was stunned. However, Her red lips curled up slightly. You old thing, there's a mountain of customers behind us. You're going to make me busy. Hurry up and help us. The shop owner's wife was busy making the milk tea and fried chicken. She was too busy to handle everything. She gently pulled the shop owner's ear and yelled at him in a playful tone. After being yelled at by his in-laws, the shop owner happily waved goodbye to Yunjian and Ce and went back to work. The lady boss was fierce to her husband, but when she saw Yunjian and Ce, she nodded and smiled before continuing with her work. In this era, milk tea franchises were not popular yet. The business of this milk tea shop was very good, but the words on the shop sign indicated that the milk tea shop had not joined the Zhang family's husband and wife milk tea shop. After that, Ce didn't say anything. He pulled Yunjian away and returned to his and Yunjian's cozy room. Ce had bought a luxurious suite in Rivertown. Whenever he was free to come to Rivertown, Yunjian would move out of her dormitory and stay there. In college, there were many girls who went out with their boyfriends at night. No one would know that Yunjian was not in the dormitory. So, softer. Yunjian bit Ce's fleshless shoulder as Ce did the shameful thing to her. At the same time, both of them were staying in the luxurious suite that Ce bought to make it easier for him to meet Yunjian. The orange light in the room shone down. It was dim but not cool. In spite of it, Yunjian could see clearly what Ce was doing on top of her. Even when he was doing this kind of thing, his handsome face didn't have the slightest change in expression. If it were not for the fact that Ce was naked, Yunjian would have thought that she was the only one who was doing something so perverted. Ce was so forceful that Yunjian almost could not hold it in and wanted to cry out, but she swallowed it back into her stomach. It was embarrassing enough to do something like this. If she cried out again, where would her dignity go? Xiao Jian, cry out if you can't hold it in. Ce tightened his grip and arched his handsome face. Yunjian pressed her face against his shoulder, too shy to look at him. Xiao Jian, you don't have to hold it in front of me. Be good and cry out, Ce said, the curve of his handsome face deepening. Then, he bit Yunjian's ear. Yunjian went limp and numb. Unable to hold it in any longer, she moaned shyly. A. Chapter 2051. Yunjian, who had been forced to scream by Ce, couldn't hold it in anymore. Of course, this was the result of Ce's hard work. At that time, it had been more than 20 days since Li Nong had promised to take Gu Nianji to the Divine Continent. After Li Nong had taken Gu Nianji to a small restaurant to eat, he hadn't done anything else. He hadn't taken Gu Nianji to the Divine Continent. Of course, it wasn't that he had broken his promise, but that Li Nong had just arrived on Earth and didn't plan to go back yet. But at that moment, Gu Nianji angrily knocked on Li Nong's door. Li Nong, who was dressed in formal clothes, opened the door. After seeing Gu Nianji standing behind the door without anyone noticing, Li Nong's eyes lit up slightly. Hey, kid. Where are you playing with your sister? It's been almost a month. Why haven't you taken me to the Divine Continent? Let me tell you, if you don't take me to the Divine Continent, I'll follow you all the time in the future and won't leave. I'll guard you until you take me to the Divine Continent. Otherwise, don't even think about walking out of this door. Gu Nianji straightened her body and spread her legs and hands like a spider. She had an expression that said, if you don't promise me, I won't leave. Are you sure you'll follow me wherever I go? Li Nong raised his eyebrows slightly when he heard Gu Nianji's words. He suddenly looked down and met Gu Nianji's eyes. A sly and deep smile appeared on his handsome face. When Gu Nianji saw this sly and deep smile, she took a deep breath. Then she looked at Li Nong again. Why did she feel that something was wrong? However, Gu Nianji didn't think too much about it. She nodded at Li Nong, then laughed and stretched out her hand. Yes. Yes, I'll follow you wherever you go. I'll annoy you to death. You pervert, you're still going back on your word. Then let's go. Li Nong didn't wait for Gu Nianji to finish speaking. He grabbed Gu Nianji's wrist and closed the door of his hotel room. He dragged Gu Nianji out of the hotel. Hey, what are you doing? Why are you taking me out? Gu Nianji tried to break free from Li Nong's grip, but Li Nong took her and ran. Gu Nianji wasn't like this before. At that time, Gu Nianji kept calling herself sister because she wanted to pretend to be a big brother in front of Li Nong. Let me tell you, it doesn't matter where you take me. I won't listen to you. In order to show her determination, Gu Nianji patted her chest and said to Li Nong, "Let's eat." Li Nong's lips curved into a smile when he heard Gu Nianji's solemn vow. "Aren't you going?" he added. Gu Nianji gulped when she heard the word eat. She was about to say no, but she changed her mind. "Even after eating, I won't forgive you. You have to take me to the divine continent." "Okay," Li Nong replied quickly this time. After he finished speaking, he pulled Gu Nianji towards the restaurant. Gu Nianji, who was so focused on eating, didn't realize that someone was holding her hand and didn't let go the whole way. At the same time, after they were done, Ce carried Yunjian, who was limp and weak, into the bathroom to wash her. At first, Ce really did wash Yunjian carefully for her. "I'll get up first." "Take your time." Yunjian wanted to get up first after soaking in the bathtub for so long. Who knew that just as Yunjian stood up, Ce, who scanned the beautiful scenery around them, knew to pin Yunjian down in the bathtub. "Xiao Jian, you're so beautiful." Ce scanned Yunjian without any obstacles. What the gaze meant was obvious. Yunjian could tell at a glance after being with Ce for so long. The 666 days of the divine spring surfaced in Yunjian's mind. Don't do it here." Yunjian blushed shyly, revealing her girlish face that she only showed in front of him. "Xiao Jian, I can't wait any longer." Ce's lips curved before he pushed her legs apart and went on a rampage in the water. Chapter 2052. Like a small boat gently brushing against the surface of the water, the two of them hugged each other endlessly. The night was still long. The room was filled with romance. Ce would visit Yunjian several times a month. Although Ce didn't visit her often during the first 2 months when she returned to Earth, Ce had become a habit. She would visit Yunjian 3 times a month and stay for 2 days each time. Of course, Ce would usually visit Yunjian during the weekend. After 2 days, Yunjian would go back to her dormitory. Zhu Huili was already used to Yunjian moving out for 2 days whenever Ce came. Of course, as long as Yunjian went back to her dormitory, Zhu Huili would go with Yunjian as usual. That afternoon, it was almost time for class. Yunjian and Zhu Huili went to the classroom first. Seeing Yunjian and Zhu Huili leave the dormitory, her roommate Shi Xiujuan went up to Miao Li and asked, "Miao Li, did you ask Yunjian to go with you on purpose during the last gathering?" Miao Li's eyes flickered when she heard Shi Xiujuan mention this. Although Miao Li and Shi Xiujuan were good friends, Miao Li didn't want Shi Xiujuan to know about this. Miao Li had secretly handed over the information to Song Yu behind everyone's back. "What? When did I do that?" Miao Li pretended not to know. "Tisk, stop pretending. You didn't even tell me, you're a good friend." "What do you mean?" "I just found 10,000 yuan in your bag." "That's 10,000 yuan. If Song Yu didn't ask you to give it to him, could it be your own money?" "I know how much money your family has," Shi Xiujuan said with some dissatisfaction. "Xiujuan, I didn't hide it from you on purpose. Song Yu forbade me from telling anyone else. Otherwise, he wouldn't have given me so much." Miao Li realized that her lie was exposed. She rolled her eyes and quickly thought of an excuse to cover up her lie. "Well, I'm your friend. I'm happy for you." Shi Xiujuan was fooled. Miao Li and Shi Xiujuan didn't know that Yunjian was standing outside the dormitory. The soundproofing effect of the dormitory was quite good. The people inside the door usually couldn't hear the conversations of the people outside, and the people outside usually couldn't hear the conversations of the people inside the dormitory. But at that time, Yun Jian heard the conversation between Miao Li and Shi Xiujuan clearly. Yun Jian's deep eyes flickered slightly. A trace of coldness flashed across the corner of her mouth and disappeared without a trace in an instant. Seeing that Zhu Huili didn't notice her and stopped walking, Yun Jian followed in 2 or 3 steps, as if she didn't notice anything. After the scheduled classes in the afternoon, the students all left the classroom. The head teacher, who hadn't appeared for a month, finally showed up. At this time, most of the students in the classroom had just left. A few were still in the classroom. Miss Yu, the head teacher who hadn't appeared for a long time, first waved at Yun Jian and then walked over with a smile. "You're Yun Jian, right?" Miss Yu was a female teacher in her 40s. She was about 1.55 meters tall. She wasn't tall, but she was quite well proportioned. It was obvious that she was married and had a child. Yun Jian nodded and said calmly, "Yes." Seeing this, Miss Yu walked up to Yun Jian with a smile. In front of some of the students in the classroom, she directly praised Yun Jian. "You got first place in the freshman examination this time. Especially your English essay. Even our English professor was full of praise after reading it." Miss Yu praised her first. It should be known that ordinary students would have laughed happily after hearing the teacher's praise. They would be as happy as kindergartners who had received lollipops. However, Yun Jian in front of her seemed to have expected this result. She replied calmly, "Yes." Miss Yu was stunned. She didn't expect Yun Jian to have such an attitude. However, after being stunned for a while, Miss Yu wasn't overly shocked. She didn't continue to praise her. Instead, she directly stated her purpose for coming. "Miss Yun Jian, the Normal University of Jianghu next door wants to organize a volunteer teaching activity for college students in the countryside. Our school has a total of 4 places, and they will be given to the top student of each grade. This volunteer teaching activity is a rare opportunity. It lasts for a week. The purpose is to let college students experience some of the hardships of rural life and bring joy to the rural children during this week. Are you willing to represent our school to teach in the countryside for a week, A?" Chapter 2053. Volunteer teaching, as the name suggested, referred to supporting the education and teaching management of primary and secondary schools in rural areas and underdeveloped areas. In layman's terms, going to the countryside for volunteer teaching meant going to some backward villages where the economic conditions could not keep up. Teaching classes for the children in rural towns so that they could also experience the life of some of the children with better economic conditions or living in the city. Not to mention 2002, even now, there were still many children in poor areas who had problems going to school. They longed to go to school, but they did not have the money. Most of the children who were born in well-off families with better economic conditions hated learning. They wished that they could skip the 9 years of compulsory education in primary and secondary schools so that they could enter society directly. It was a sharp contrast to the students in poor areas who had to climb several mountains to get to school from home. Every day, they had to walk for nearly 2 hours on the mountain road to get to school. The volunteer teaching that Miss Yu mentioned was a group of university students who went to rural areas in poor mountainous areas to help the children grow and learn. Of course, university students who went to rural areas usually did not stay for long. Seeing that Yun Jian did not respond after hearing what she said, Miss Yu tempted Yun Jian again in order to make her agree to participate. Although the environment in rural areas will be tough, it will only be for a week. You can just take it as a trip to another place. Moreover, if you do a good job, the school will reward you." "What reward?" Before Miss Yu could finish speaking, Yun Jian interrupted her. Indeed, Miss Yu really hoped that Yun Jian could go with her. This was because Yun Jian's participation represented her, Miss Yu's glory. After all, the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China was not the organizer. Therefore, only 4 people from each school would go. In each year, the 4 most outstanding students from the freshman, sophomores, juniors, and seniors would be qualified to go. The reward was actually just a cover. Teachers usually thought that since they had made such a request, the students would definitely not dare to go against the teacher directly. Therefore, they would have to be obedient. Miss Yu did not expect that Yun Jian would really ask about the reward. You'll know when the reward is out. I've already registered your name. Pack up tonight and go to the gate of Jianghu Normal University at 1:00 tomorrow afternoon. Someone will pick you up. Miss Yu directly said this. This was Miss Yu's true motive. Most of the teachers in the school thought that they were teachers and that they could make decisions for any student. What if you don't agree? Okay, the graduation certificate will be delayed or withheld. The students were forced to agree. If I want to apply for leave in the future, I don't need any reason. If you agree, I'll apply for it. Otherwise, you'll be the one applying for it. If you want to apply for it, you can go by yourself. Just as Miss Yu was about to leave after announcing this, Yun Jian's voice came from behind Miss Yu. Upon hearing this, Miss Yu was stunned. An ordinary female student actually dared to go against the decision of a teacher? This is not a third-rate university. Usually, students who wanted a graduation certificate would leave a good impression on their teachers. Miss Yu was stunned by Yun Jian's words. Then, she decisively took out her graduation certificate and said, I asked you to teach in the countryside because of your academic qualifications. If you don't even agree to do this little thing that the school asked you to do, then the school has the right to withhold the graduation certificate that you could have received directly after your senior year. A few naughty students in the previous cohort I taught had their graduation certificates confiscated. In the end, their parents used their connections and went to the school every day to beg for it. In the end, the school reluctantly gave it to the parents because they were pitiful and sincere. You're a girl. It's not easy for your parents. If you want to be thick-skinned and want your parents to go to the principal's office to beg for your graduation certificate, then it's up to you. Even a fool could tell that these 2 or 3 sentences that the teacher often said were threats. The meaning of these words was that without their graduation certificate, Yun Jian would not be able to survive for the rest of her life. She had thought that Yun Jian would be so frightened that she would apologize to her immediately after hearing these few sentences. However, what Miss Yu saw was Yun Jian's cold smile. She crossed her arms and waited for her to finish speaking before speaking to her in a flat and indifferent tone. Don't you know what kind of connections I used to get into the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China? Why would I care about a mere graduation certificate from your school? As long as you agree to the reward, I'll participate. I'm giving you face. Don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Otherwise, in Country Z, I can make sure that no school dares to accept a teacher like you. If you don't believe me, you can give it a try. A. Chapter 2054. Yun Jian was extremely disgusted with Miss Yu's threatening tone despite her appearance as a teacher. Therefore, she directly said such words to Miss Yu in front of Zhu Huili and the other students who had not yet left after class. Hearing Yun Jian's words, Zhu Huili was stunned. The other students who had not yet left were also shocked. When they reacted, the naughty boys who had not yet left gathered together and whispered to each other. Oh my God, Yun Jian from our class is fighting with the homeroom teacher. Too fierce. Even we don't dare to fight with the homeroom teacher easily. The homeroom teacher threatened her, but she actually threatened the homeroom teacher in return. TSK, this chick is beautiful with big breasts and a perky butt. I didn't expect her to be so arrogant. The president of a martial arts club is really different. The conversation of this group of boys was almost as soft as the buzzing of mosquitoes. Miss Yu did not hear it. Yun Jian's ears were good and she heard it clearly, but she ignored it. Miss Yu, who was standing opposite Yun Jian, was stunned by Yun Jian's words. Then Miss Yu suddenly remembered that during the last teachers' meeting, the principal asked her to stay alone after the other teachers left and told her to take care of a classmate named Yun Jian in their class in the future. Miss Yu had already forgotten about it. But when she heard Yun Jian's words, her ears rang and she immediately recalled it. Could it be that Yun Jian had a terrifying background? Thinking of this, Miss Yu felt a lingering fear. If that was really the case, then she could not afford to offend her. Okay. Yun Jian, I promise you. I'm not that hard to talk to. If you had told me clearly earlier, I would have agreed directly. Then in the future, if you want to take leave from school, you don't need any reason. I will agree. But you have to tell me before you take leave. I have to know that you are safe. After all, the students were in school. If something happened to them, the teachers would also be responsible. If they couldn't find the culprit, the parents would make a fuss at the school. Yun Jian was not an unreasonable person. Naturally, she nodded. Sure. Then go to the gate of Jianghu Normal University tomorrow morning at 1:00 in the afternoon. Remember to bring your luggage. A teacher will stand there with the registration form to count the number of people. Just go and register. After that, follow the group. Seeing that Yun Jian agreed, Miss Yu told Yun Jian the plan. What he got in return was Yun Jian's emotionless reply, yes. The next day, 1 p.m. She appeared at the entrance of River City Normal University, not a minute too early nor too late. In the distance, there were more than 20 university students standing next to a teacher who was registering the number of students. From the looks of it, these 20-odd college students were obviously students from Jianghu Normal University. This event was organized by Jianghu Normal University. Therefore, the students from other universities only had 1 or 2 students. Some had at most 4 students, while the others only had 1 or 2 students. Yun Jian stepped forward. School, name. The teacher who was registering the number of students glanced at Yun Jian and asked. Yun Jian from Jianghu University of Electronic Science and Technology of China, she replied indifferently. The teacher who was registering the number of students immediately recorded the data. Oh my, it's actually the legendary person from Jianghu University of Electronic Science and Technology of China. The one who took over the martial arts club as soon as she entered university. She even won the adoration of Mr. Song from Dongfang University. That's Yun Jian. Perhaps because Yun Jian's reputation was too well known, the girls from Jianghu Normal University immediately recognized Yun Jian. Speaking of which, I heard that Mr. Song from Dongfang University next door didn't come to school a few days ago. It seems that something happened at home. The voices of the girls rose and fell one after another. No one had the intention to pay attention to Yun Jian. In response, Yun Jian signed up and put her hands in her trouser pockets. She didn't care. It's you. Are you also going to the countryside to teach? About 5 minutes after Yun Jian stood to the side, a girl who was dressed very prettily and gorgeously walked over. The girl's eyes lit up when she saw Yun Jian as she came over to greet her in surprise. It was Liang Shumin, the daughter of Gu Yunjian's childhood friend, old Liang, who had brought his wife and daughter to go on a trip with Gu Junjian last time by the beach. The pampered young mistress. After the trip, Yun Jian and Liang Shumin had taken the bus from Longmen City to Jiangcheng. Liang Shumin had even invited Yun Jian to her school to play with a blushing face before she ran off after that. Yun Jian still remembered her. She was a girl who did not share the same heart and looked unfriendly on the outside but had a pure heart. All in all, Yun Jian had a good impression of Liang Shumin. Now that Liang Shumin greeted her, Yun Jian could not help responding, "MMA." Chapter 2055. That's great. My dad signed me up secretly, saying that he wanted to use this opportunity to let me experience what a poor life is like. I don't want that. Besides, I don't have any friends. Now that you're here, that's great. Liang Shumin skipped 2 steps toward Yun Jian and hooked her arm around Yun Jian's like a naughty girl. Yun Jian did not avoid her, clearly not repulsed by Liang Shumin. Liang Shumin's father, old Liang, had long realized that his daughter had been spoiled by him. She threw tantrums every day even though she was not a bad person. As a matter of fact, the school was organizing a volunteer education program in the countryside. Old Liang used his connections to get Liang Shumin into the program. This time, he was determined to let his spoiled daughter experience what it was like to live in a poor mountainous area. When she returned in the future, he hoped that his daughter would be able to rein in her temper during this volunteer education program. Let's go sit over there. My legs are aching. After waiting for about 15 minutes, Liang Shumin bent over and massaged her legs. She did not even have the strength to straighten her back. She looked up at Yun Jian and spoke. Yun Jian replied softly. Liang Shumin then walked excitedly to the flower bed made of ceramic tiles and sat down on the tiles that were barely enough for one person to sit on. Yun Jian, on the other hand, stood aside without saying a word. After everyone had arrived, they each carried their travel backpacks filled with clothes and daily necessities and boarded the bus. The bus bumped along the way as it headed toward the destination. It took them 5 hours to arrive at the border of H province from J province. Many people on the bus were already impatient. Why aren't we here yet? It's been 5 hours. Someone's grumbling came and went. Some people on the bus were already taking a nap. Yun Jian and Liang Shumin sat in the same row. Liang Shumin had already fallen asleep from fatigue. Yun Jian was resting with her eyes closed as well. At the back seat of the bus, a guy was telling a bunch of girls a story excitedly. He was even showing off in all sorts of ways. The girls were very interested as they cheered excitedly. Have you heard of the director of New Cruise? Ha! That's amazing. It's only been 3 years since she started New Cruise, and now it's already on the international stage. This boy's name was Shen Qingjiang. He didn't look very good, but he was tall and lean. He usually liked to sit among a group of girls and brag. Needless to say, there really were such people in this world. They weren't good-looking, but they were popular with girls just because of their mouths. This was probably referring to Shen Qingjiang. Wow! That's amazing. Immediately, a girl seemed to be shocked and responded with a sentence. Of course. My dad has connections in New Cruise. If you want, I'll sneak you over to New Cruise to have some fun. It's not the first time I've been there. Seeing that the girls were interested, Shen Qingjiang became more and more excited. Seeing that he was surrounded by familiar faces, Shen Qingjiang could not help but tell them about what he did in New Cruise the last time he was there. Let me tell you a secret, I stole a treasure from New Cruise the last time. Those staff members were so stupid that they didn't notice. Haha. Shen Qingjiang told them about how he stole a treasure from New Cruise as if it was a glorious deed of chivalry. Once he said that, another group of ignorant girls exclaimed. New Cruise is an international company. Brother Jiang, you're amazing. You didn't even get caught stealing from New Cruise. You can go and be a master thief. You're so cool. That's right. That's amazing. I think even the international master thieves aren't as good as you. While the girls were chatting, Yun Jian, who had her eyes closed, suddenly opened them. No one noticed that her sharp eyes reflected a thick murderous intent at the same time. Chapter 2056. The guy named Shen Qingjiang was still bragging when he suddenly saw the prettiest girl in the car, whom he had been paying attention to earlier, walk up to him from the front seat. Shen Qingjiang whistled and looked at Yun Jian, who was walking up to him. Thinking that Yun Jian was captivated by what he said just now as well, he flipped his hair and stopped the topic, telling Yun Jian, "What's wrong with you? Pretty lady, are you interested in New Cruise too? What did you steal from New Cruise?" Yun Jian asked with a cold expression. 2 days ago, Zhang Jifan had sent her a message. Something had been stolen from New Cruise. The item was worth hundreds of thousands, which was not worth much to New Cruise. However, the person who had stolen the item had conveniently taken away the design blueprint of the latest sports car that New Cruise had purchased at a high price. It was very important to New Cruise. The design blueprint was the inspiration of a professor who was a genius in car production. It was the only one in the world, and even the professor could not produce a second one. New Cruise was equipped with cameras, but the cameras in this era were very blurry. One could only vaguely see a person's silhouette. Moreover, the person who had stolen the design blueprint of the latest sports car happened to be carrying the camera. Currently, New Cruise had begun a large-scale search for the thief. This had happened 2 days ago. If they had not found the thief, Yun Jian was planning to return to New Cruise and search for the culprit personally. However, she did not expect to hear Shen Qingjiang's words here. Shen Qingjiang had long scanned the pretty female university students in the car and had spotted the prettiest one among them, Yun Jian. However, Yun Jian did not seem to care about anything, so Shen Qingjiang found it difficult to make a move. However, Shen Qingjiang did not expect Yun Jian to offer herself to him. When he heard Yun Jian's words, Shen Qingjiang thought that Yun Jian was interested in what he had said. He quickly replied, "What else could it be? A treasure, of course. Brother Jiang stole it, so it belongs to him. New Cruise doesn't lack these things. You're not even Brother Jiang's girlfriend, so why are you being so nosy?" A fat girl stood in front of Yun Jian. At the same time, she shook her body twice with a rude and unreasonable look on her face. "You're a student from another school, right? They are so nosy that their elbows are about to reach out to our Jiangqing Normal University. Stand further away, stand further away. What an eyesore." Together with the chubby girl, there was an elegant and beautiful young lady with a slender figure. She was dressed in luxurious clothes and stood in front of Yun Jian, shooting a disdainful glance at Yun Jian. Whether it was Shen Qingjiang, the fat girl, or the good-looking girl who spoke later, they were all students of Jiangqing Normal University. The chubby girl was called Kai Xinyuan, and the good-looking girl was called Wu Zhizhi. Kai Xinyuan and Wu Zhizhi were mesmerized by Shen Qingjiang. They did not know what was right and wrong, so they started yelling at Yun Jian. The other girls around Shen Qingjiang commented on Yun Jian as well, calling her shameless for coming up to them out of the blue. Indeed, if what Shen Qingjiang did had nothing to do with Yun Jian, then Yun Jian would be shameless for coming over out of nowhere. However, Shen Qingjiang admitted that he had stolen something from New Cruise. Moreover, Yun Jian had seen the surveillance video. The thief who had stolen the design blueprint had the exact same build as Shen Qingjiang. Yun Jian would remember anyone who caught her eye, no matter how tall or strong they were. This was the result of her years of experience and ability in assassination. Yun Jian ignored Kai Xinyuan and Wu Zhizhi. She looked at Shen Qingjiang coldly and said bluntly, "Among the things you stole, there were a few blueprints for the interior and exterior of sports cars. How did you know?" Shen Qingjiang exclaimed in shock when he heard Yun Jian's words. "Pretty girl, don't tell me you have superpowers. You're amazing." Shen Qingjiang exclaimed as he looked at Yun Jian. It sounded like he was exclaiming, but in reality, Shen Qingjiang wanted to get closer to Yun Jian. As he spoke, Shen Qingjiang pushed away a girl who was secretly touching his thigh beside him. He patted the spot and said to Yun Jian, "Pretty girl, you're a pretty girl. Beauty, it seems like you're a kindred spirit. Why don't we sit down and talk? What do you think? I'll bring you to New Cruise next time, how about that? I've been researching how to be a master thief recently. I realized that I'm really suitable to be one. Want to join me?" Shen Qingjiang's words immediately made Wu Zhizhi unhappy. "Brother Jiang, didn't you say you'd bring me? Don't worry, I'll bring you next time." Shen Qingjiang brushed Wu Zhizhi off and turned to look at Yun Jian. Hand over the design blueprint. Shen Qingjiang had just turned to look at Yun Jian when Yun Jian spoke. Shen Qingjiang was stunned when he heard that. "Pretty girl, I got those with my own abilities. Why should I give them to you? Unless you sleep with me." Before Shen Qingjiang could finish his sentence, Yun Jian stood before him. Yun Jian stood in front of Shen Qingjiang and the others. Her expression did not change and her cold eyes were as sharp as ever. In the next second, Yun Jian's right hand came to the side of Shen Qingjiang's neck. Shen Qingjiang thought that Yun Jian was going to let him touch her hand. Just as he was about to touch her hand with a smile, a cold object pressed against his neck before he could touch Yun Jian's hand. That object reflected a ray of light from the setting sun that shone through the window of the bus. It was only then that the crowd saw that Yunjian was holding a shiny butterfly knife. Before the crowd could react, Yunjian had already spoken in front of everyone on the bus. Her voice was as cold as ice in February. In the next second, everyone on the bus widened their eyes in shock. You stole my stuff and invited me to steal from my company. How dare you? Do you really think that I'm just a decoration as the chairman of New Cruise? Chapter 2057. Yunjian's voice was flat and monotonous, but it was as cold as ice in February. It was so cold that everyone in the bus, especially Shen Qingjiang who sat in front, Kai Xinyuan, and Wu Zhizhi beside him, shuddered from the bottom of their hearts. What do you mean? Wu Zhizhi had yet to catch on to what Yunjian meant. Your stuff? No, that's New Cruise's stuff. It's Brother Zhang's stuff now. Since when did it become yours? You can't be the director of New Cruise. Kai Xinyuan was so fat that the lumps of fat on her body started jiggling after she spoke. She shook her fat body and scolded Yunjian with a manly, rough voice. Everyone in the bus did not think that Yunjian was New Cruise's director. After all, her age was obvious. New Cruise was an international brand. If Yunjian was New Cruise's director, she would have started New Cruise at the age of 15, right? What kind of joke was that? I'll give it to you. Put the knife down and I'll give it to you. Shen Qingjiang was still afraid of death. His pupils shrunk slightly as he stuttered. Give it to me first. Yunjian's words left no room for argument. Shen Qingjiang, who initially wanted to trick Yunjian, was afraid that the knife would be blind. Moreover, it was just a piece of scrap paper. He had brought it along because he liked the supercar's blueprint. It was useless to him. Clearly, Shen Qingjiang did not know that the piece of scrap paper he thought was worthless would fetch a sky-high price in the international market. Shen Qingjiang reached his hands into his shirt and pants pockets and searched around for a while. He then glanced at Yunjian. Seeing that Yunjian was staring at him, he slowly passed the blueprint to Yunjian. Yunjian took the blueprint from Shen Qingjiang's hands and kept the butterfly knife. She was so fast that no one could see when she put the knife away. By then, the bus had driven into the bumpy, uncemented, and muddy land ahead. As soon as the big bus drove into the bumpy muddy ground, the whole bus started to sway left and right, causing the whole bus to jolt. Some of the students sitting on the bus didn't react to the sudden jolt, and their bodies involuntarily fell forward. Shen Qingjiang was sitting in the middle of the last row of the bus. There was no seat in front of him. The person standing straight in front of Shen Qingjiang was Yunjian. As the bus jolted, Shen Qingjiang was jolted along with it. He rolled his eyes and wanted to take advantage of the bumpy road to pretend that he fell forward and accidentally fell on Yunjian. In the bumpy ride of the bus, Yunjian retreated to her original seat in the front row in a few flashes without a care in the world. Shen Qingjiang missed the bus and fell face first onto the dirty floor of the bus. Ah! Shen Qingjiang was in so much pain that he could not stand up for a long time. Initially, he wanted to pounce on Yunjian and rub her voluptuous breasts. But he did not expect Yunjian to react so quickly. In the end, Kai Xinyuan, Wu Zhizhi, and the other girls helped Shen Qingjiang up. Sit tight and don't run around. The next 3 hours will be bumpy road. The driver shouted as he drove. This time, the university students organized a support program in the countryside. The teacher followed along and was now sitting at the front of the bus with his eyes closed. After the bus drove into the bumpy mountain road, many students who were sleeping woke up with a start. What's wrong? Why is the bus shaking? Liang Xiumin, who had been sleeping and did not know what had happened, woke up with a start. By the time everyone came to their senses, the car was already shaking left and right. The bus swayed and swayed for about 3 hours on the deserted road. They arrived at the destination of the program, Wuzhen in City W of H Province. Chapter 2058. Wuxian was located in the middle of a rugged ravine. It was a very remote and barren place. It was different from Xinjiang town where Yunjian was reborn. The wealth gap between Wuxian and Xinjiang town was huge. Compared to Xinjiang town, Wuxian could not even be considered a town. Wuxian was surrounded by mountains and the roads were rugged. The people relied on their own sowing and harvesting to survive. There were no large textile factories in Wuxian. Just imagine, from Wuxian to the remote suburbs of City W, it took 3 hours by car. No large company would choose to invest in Wuxian. This was truly a poor mountainous area. How poor was it? The people here, be it the elderly or the children, had never walked out of the mountains in their lives. The transportation here was very inconvenient. Occasionally, there would be people who would go to the city to collect on Mondays, but they would drive vehicles like tractors and tricycles. A normal bus would take 3 hours. Driving such a vehicle to the city would take at least 2 to 3 times longer than the bus. Moreover, taking a tractor to the city was expensive. The poverty here was beyond imagination. No news report could fully describe the hardships of the people at the bottom of society. Yin Jian had thought that Xinjiang town was already considered poor. After all, to her, who used to be at the top of the world, Xinjiang town was a stark contrast. However, in comparison to Xinjiang town, Wu town paled in comparison. Oh my God, are we really going to stay here for the next 7 days? This house is made of mud, right? What if the house collapses in the middle of the night? We'll die. And this road is full of potholes. There's not even a cement floor. The students exclaimed when they saw the scene before them. Although he was prepared, he was still shocked when he saw the scene in front of him. How was this a house? The houses in Wuxian were all made of mud. Occasionally, those who were better off lived in stone houses. As for a brick house, to the people of Wuxian, that was simply impossible. All right, I'll bring you to Wuxian's mayor. He'll arrange a place for you to stay. The only teacher leading the group led the students across the potholes of the mud towards the mayor's house. Soon, the students were all settled down. Wuxian was a town. There are also villages here. Some of the students were taken to the village children's homes. Wuxian had a combined primary school and junior high school. If the children who lived in the village did not live in the school, they had to walk for about 2 hours every day to get to Wuxian. The distance from Wuxian to the outskirts of W City was far enough. Those poor children from the mountainous areas lived even deeper into the mountains than Wuxian. Yun Jian followed him for about 2 hours on the mountain road. Finally, she was taken to a village that was 2 hours away from Wuxian. Some of the students refused to go to the village no matter what, so the mayor arranged for them to live with the best families in Wuxian. But to be honest, the family conditions in this place were not that different. Of course, Wuxian could not accommodate so many people, so the mayor led Yun Jian and the others to Dali village, which was the nearest village to Wuxian but was still a 2-hour walk away. It was not easy to walk at night, but with a lantern, they could still walk. I can't walk anymore. I can't walk anymore, Liang Xiumin panted. She could not keep up. The extra rooms in Wuxian had already been taken by other students. Liang Xiumin was complaining about her father the whole way. She complained as she walked. Don't talk when you walk, or you'll be more tired. Yun Jian helped Liang Xiumin walk up a steep slope. Little girl, you know so much at such a young age. It's rare. The mayor led the way with a lantern and could not help but exclaim. College students nowadays were spoiled. After walking so many mountain roads, it was normal for them to be like Liang Xiumin. There were not many who could endure hardship like this little girl. Chapter 2059. The mayor even made fun of them as he spoke. The mayor's words eased everyone's mood a little. Now, walking on the mountain path that went up and down was no longer as boring as it was at the beginning. Most of the people stayed in Wuxian. Only a dozen people followed them to Dali village. Fortunately, it did not rain during the day, so the mountain path was not slippery. Everyone was exhausted from the climb. 2 hours later, amidst the crowd's repeated questions about their arrival, the mayor brought them to a small village. This was Dali village. Compared to Wuxian, this place was even more desolate. Even the mud houses had become houses that only the rich of Dali village could afford to live in. Many people in Dali village lived in shabby thatched huts. The mayor went from house to house and asked people to arrange accommodation for Yun Jian and the rest. Yun Jian and Liang Shumin were arranged to live in the same house in Dali village. After the mayor reminded them, he went back to Wuxian. The dozen or so college students who were arranged to live in Dali village were all told by the mayor that the children of these families would cross the mountains alone the next day to study in Wuxian. When the time came, Yun Jian and the rest would follow their children to Wuxian Primary School to meet up with the other college students who were here to teach. By then, the mayor had already left. Yun Jian and Liang Shumin were sitting at the wooden table in the house they were arranged to live in. It was already 11:00 at night. The children and farmers in the mountains all went to bed early. They went to bed as soon as the sky turned dark. Today's incident was sudden. The mayor woke up the people in these houses and arranged for Yun Jian and the rest to live in. At this moment, Yun Jian and Liang Shumin were sitting on the only 2 wooden stools in the thatched hut. An 11-year-old girl with rosy cheeks and a dirty face was standing in front of them. The girl's clothes were faded. One of her big toes was sticking out of the shoe because the shoe was broken. The shoe was also covered in mud. It looked like it had been worn for many years and was no longer fitting. In this cold and windy weather, the little girl only wore 2 pieces of shabby and dirty clothes. Her small body could not stop shivering. There was a rotten smell in the thatched hut. Liang Shumin couldn't help but cover her mouth and nose, breathing softly. However, since she was lodging in someone else's house, Liang Shumin was too embarrassed to say anything. She could only blame her father. This is not a place for people to live. This was a pigsty. After a long silence, the little girl greeted Yun Jian and Liang Shumin fearfully. "Hello, sisters. Where are your parents?" Liang Shumin covered her mouth and nose as she asked the little girl. Yun Jian blinked but didn't say anything. If one were to ask Yun Jian how she felt about this place, the answer would be simple. She had once walked at the peak of the world, becoming an existence at the top of society that everyone looked up to but could not reach. He had once been at the bottom of the valley. When he first joined in Han, his status was even lower than a dog's. Therefore, to her, no matter what the situation was, she could accept it. When Liang Shumin asked this question, the little girl fell silent. Just when Yun Jian and Liang Shumin thought that the little girl would not answer, she suddenly sobbed. "There's only me, my brother, and my grandmother at home. My father is dead, and my mother doesn't want us anymore." As she spoke, the little girl shrank back in fear. Yun Jian and Liang Shumin later found out that the little girl's father had accidentally been crushed to death when he moved rocks in town to earn money. Her mother had run away with someone long ago and left the mountains. There was only a bedridden grandmother to take care of. Not only did the little girl have to bring her brother to school in town, but she also had to work in the fields whenever she was free. Otherwise, the family of 3 would starve to death. After the little girl finished speaking, Yun Jian and Liang Shumin fell silent for 2 seconds. "But Ying, don't be afraid. Grandma said before that my mother will definitely come back." The little girl's name was Lu Ying. It was a very beautiful name. It was said that before her mother ran away with someone else, her father and they had asked a cultured person in Wuxian to help them give her the name. Lu Ying's eyes were clear and pure, something that other children didn't have. This touched Liang Shumin's heart. Yun Jian also blinked. "Then where did your mother go?" Liang Shumin couldn't believe that Lu Ying's mother didn't want her anymore. She asked again. When Lu Ying heard this, she fell silent for a few seconds. Then, she shook her head. "I don't know, but my father said that my mother will definitely come back. My mother won't abandon us, eh?" Chapter 2060. Lu Ying's clear and firm eyes made people unwilling to break the only wish of this innocent little girl who missed her mother. Her wish was very simple. She wanted to live happily with her mother. Lu Ying's younger brother was called Lu Shi. The names of the two siblings were given by the cultured people in Wuxian, so it sounded pretty good. At night, Yun Jian and Liang Shumin were placed in the same room. The room was dark and damp. In the middle of winter, the two of them shared a quilt that had already been covered. The quilt smelled like someone had covered it. It was very smelly and very thin. This place is so shabby. The quilt that was given to us is so thin and cold. And it's so smelly. The room is as smelly as a pigsty. I want to go home. Liang Shumin shrank her body. It was already the 100th time that she tried to dial the phone in her hand. However, there was no signal here at all. The phone could not be dialed. Not to mention the phone, there was not even an electric light here. They relied on candles for illumination at night. There were not even many candles. They were used sparingly. Liang Shumin was a rich young lady. Naturally, she could not stay in such a place. Yun Jian could understand. After the quilt was covered, Yun Jian turned sideways and said to Liang Shumin, "Sleep." At 1:30 in the morning, Liang Shumin, who was still groggy and sleepy, gently pulled Yun Jian. "Can you accompany me to the toilet? I'm a little scared." If she wanted to go to the toilet at night, she had to walk a few hundred meters before there was a latrine. There was no toilet at home. Yun Jian was used to wearing clothes at night. She turned over and stood up. Although Liang Shumin did not understand why Yun Jian did not change into pajamas to sleep, she did not ask. After returning from the toilet, she happened to pass by the room of the little girl, Lu Ying, and her brother, Lu Shi. "Sister, I'm so cold." "Brother, be good. You won't be cold when you sleep. Go to sleep." If the quilt was on the body, no matter how cold it would not be so cold that he could not sleep. Yun Jian and Liang Shumin could see through the thin gap of the window made of wood and paper that could not block the cold wind from blowing into the room. Lu Ying and Lu Shi did not cover themselves with anything. They only wore 2 more layers of clothes. They huddled together and shivered. The 2 extra layers of clothing were so thin that they were no different from not wearing anything at all. They were as thin as a piece of paper. Even an idiot could tell that the 2 young children had given up the only blanket that Liang Shumin had complained about being thin, smelly, and dirty just now to Yun Jian and Liang Shumin. Both Yun Jian and Liang Shumin felt like they were deeply touched by something when they witnessed the scene. Even Yun Jian's face could not help but change. Liang Shumin turned to glance at Yun Jian before she dashed into their room. Carrying the blanket to Lu Ying and Lu Shi's room, she tossed the blanket on their bed right in front of the couple. Liang Shumin didn't know how to speak. By the time she reacted, Lu Ying and Lu Shi were already staring at her in a daze. Liang Shumin made up her mind. She closed her eyes and said stubbornly, "I was woken up by the smell of this blanket." Humph. With that, Liang Shumin ran back to her and Yun Jian's room. An 11-year-old girl and a 9-year-old boy stared blankly at Liang Shumin, who despised their quilt, running back to her room. They did not know what to do. Yun Jian, who was hiding in the dark, saw this and narrowed her eyes. Liang Shumin was clearly freezing to death, but she still wanted to return the quilt to Lu Ying and Lu Shi. Her words were so harsh. However, it really did seem like her temperament as a young lady. Liang Shumin was cold and did not sleep that night. The next morning, after Lu Ying made breakfast and fed it to her bedridden grandmother, everyone sat at the table and had breakfast. Breakfast was porridge. There were no side dishes. Rather than porridge, it was more like a pot of water with a small handful of rice in it. It was a fragrant tea made from rice. Eating this would not fill one's stomach, but at least one would not starve to death. Before going to Wuxian, Lu Ying drew a line on the wall next to her house. Half of the wall was already covered with countless Zheng characters. After Lu Ying finished this line, she pulled her brother and led Yunjian and Liang Shumin to the mountain path in town. When they were about to reach school, Lu Ying's footsteps became lighter. Liang Shumin could not help but be curious and asked Lu Ying, "Little girl, what did you draw on the wall just now?" "Wait for Mom to come back." Lu Ying pulled her brother and walked briskly. She walked in front and suddenly turned her head and smiled at Yunjian and Lu Shi, revealing her small canine teeth. "Before Dad left, he said that as long as I filled the wall with Zheng characters, Mom will come back." Some people lived a luxurious life and ate fish and meat every day. But some people had very small wishes. No matter how poor and bitter they were, they only wanted their parents to grow up with them. Chapter 2061. They left at 4:30 p.m. and finally arrived at Wuxian Elementary School at 6:30 p.m. Wuxian Elementary School was different from other elementary schools. There were very few children in Wuxian and the number of people in each grade was not enough to form a class. So in Wuxian Elementary School, grades 1, 2 and 3 were in one class and grades 4, 5 and 6 were in one class. There were only 2 classes in the entire school. A place like Wuxian Elementary School lacked teachers the most. But most of the teachers who graduated from universities did not want to come to such a poor mountainous area. Now, there were only 2 teachers in Wuxian Elementary School. Other than the principal, there was also a female teacher who volunteered to come to the poor mountainous area. Seeing Lu Ying and Lu Shi enter the classroom, Yunjian and Liang Shumin did not plan to follow. There were no activities on the first day of going to the countryside. All the university students who went to the countryside to teach gathered here and were immediately dismissed. From the second day onwards, every university student would be officially arranged to tutor the children here. Since they had nothing to do, Yunjian and Liang Shumin went to town to buy a few large quilts. They also bought new quilts for Lu Ying and Lu Shi's grandma. At this moment, the two were passing by a large bamboo forest. There was only one bed and quilt shop in Wuxian and the bamboo forest was a must. There were trees planted all around the bamboo forest. The biggest difference between Wuxian and other small towns was that there were a lot of bamboo and trees. The surrounding grass was also as tall as a person. If someone was hiding in the grass, it would be hard to find them. It's so easy to get them. These 2 women came here on their own. They're so **king soft. I heard that they're female university students from the city. Knock them out, we'll take one each and **ck them again after we're done. Just as they passed by the bamboo forest, 2 voices came from the corner. Liang Shumin naturally could not hear the whispers, but Yunjian narrowed her eyes. After taking 3 steps forward, a gust of wind came from behind. Yunjian did not even think about it. She grabbed Liang Shumin and threw the quilt to the side. She turned sideways and flipped over a dozen meters with Liang Shumin in just 3 seconds. When the 2 ruffians from Wuxian saw this, they were shocked. This girl is so fast and fierce. These 2 old ruffians were old bachelors. Both of them had achieved nothing in their lives and could not afford to marry a woman. They had only slept with the lonely widows in town a few times. When the 2 old bachelors saw Yunjian and Liang Shumin's soft and tender skin, their nether regions began to itch and they began to have naughty thoughts. Unexpectedly, Yunjian found out. "TSK, female university student, you're so **king soft and tender. Let me tell you, people rarely pass by this place. Today, it's useless even if you scream until your throat breaks." One of the old ruffians looked at Yunjian with a lecherous gaze. "Who says there's no one? I won't let you bully them." Just as Yunjian narrowed her eyes, a righteous male voice sounded. Next, she saw a masculine and righteous man. The boy was about 20 years old. He was quite handsome and gave people the feeling of a gentle senior. "Senior Muqiao." Liang Shumin was stunned when she saw the boy. Senior Mu Yong was a student of Liang Shumin's school. He had only greeted Liang Shumin twice, but they were not familiar with each other. "TSK, boy, you're courting death." However, the two old ruffians did not wait for Liang Shumin and Mu Yong to speak. They rushed over and gave the defenseless Mu Yong a few punches before tying him up. What should we do? Liang Shumin saw that Mu Yong was tied up. She was so frightened that she grabbed Yunjian's hand and pulled Yunjian back to the bamboo forest. Yes, what should we do? He, you two should just follow us. Our big brother has been lonely for so many years. It's not easy to catch you. Let us have some fun. He. One of the old ruffians walked over with a smirk. Seeing this, Liang Shumin was even more frightened. Let them go. Let them go. Hit me. Hit me if you have the guts. Let them go. Mu Yong shouted when he saw this. The other old ruffian stepped on Mu Yong's head and viciously stomped on Mu Yong a few times. He shouted, "Boy, behave yourself. Otherwise, I'll kill you." After that, he tied Mu Yong to a tree and continued to walk toward Yunjian and Liang Shumin. He, little girl, what are you thinking? Want to escape? No way. If you know what's good for you, come here obediently and let us kill you. Otherwise. The old ruffian saw that Yunjian narrowed her eyes and seemed to be thinking about something. He laughed. I'm thinking about how to kill you. Unknowingly, a butterfly knife appeared in Yunjian's hand. She played with the butterfly knife and suddenly spoke. The two old ruffians were startled. But the two old ruffians were also frightened. Naturally, they were not afraid and continued to walk toward Yunjian and Liang Shumin. Little girl, we are frightened. Let alone you, even if an assassin agent comes, I'll kill her. The two old ruffians sneered and continued to walk toward them. Is that so? What a coincidence. Yunjian played with the butterfly knife twice and stood in front of the old ruffians. Then, in front of the few people present, she spoke fearlessly. But what she said made everyone present stunned. In the 7 years since my debut, I've taken on 1027 assassination missions and annihilated 109 assassin organizations. I don't know if I'm the same as the assassin agent you said. Chapter 2062. Yunjian was 18 years old this year. She started killing people when she was 12 years old, which meant that she started accepting missions. She was 16 years old before her rebirth and 15 years old after her rebirth. After 3 years, her current body was 18 years old, but if she started her career, she would be 19 years old now. So it was not wrong that she started her career 7 years ago. And these 1027 assassination missions were from 109 assassin organizations. The assassination missions were calculated according to the missions accepted on the International Assassin website. In other words, after the Holy Spring and her rebirth, Yunjian almost never accepted assassination missions. This was her previous record. As for the 109 assassin organizations, they were all the assassin organizations she had eliminated in her previous life and all the assassin organizations she had eliminated after her rebirth. Not to mention the fact that ordinary people would find this data unbelievable. Even in the assassin and agent circle, it was a level that no one could surpass. Even though Yunjian had not returned to the assassin and agent circle for 3 years. A true legend was not just a legend for a short period of time. Becoming a legend at the fastest speed and falling at a shocking speed was not something a strong person should do. Even though she had been missing for 2 years, once she returned, she was still a legend that no one could surpass. She was still the king of secret agents. Yunjian had done this. At this time, after hearing Yunjian's professional words, the two old ruffians' hearts skipped a beat. Even Liang Shumin's expression changed slightly in shock. The agent Yunjian was talking about should be the special forces, right? Mu Yao, who was tied up by the two old ruffians, also widened her eyes in shock. She had to admit that Yunjian's words were too unbelievable. She was an assassin or an agent? Was this for real? The two old ruffians still had some common sense. Although the people in Wuxian were poor and had a hard life, that was only limited to the honest and honest people. Like these two old ruffians, they usually tricked the people who went to the city to deliver goods to and from the city for free. Or they would go to someone's family to steal some money. They had done such things many times. They had been to the city a few times and had seen more than those who had never left Wuxian in their lives. After hearing Yun Jian's words, the shorter old ruffian glanced at Yun Jian. "Little girl, don't bully us because we are from Wuxian. We have been to the big cities. Some people are not so easy to fool. You said you are an assassin agent? Who are you trying to fool? Aren't you just a university student who came from some place? Do you think we are fooling you? You think you can pretend to be an assassin with a knife? I grew up scared." As he spoke, the short ruffian wanted to go over and snatch the butterfly knife from Yun Jian. The taller old ruffian also went over to help him. Liang Xiumin was in Wuxian, but she was in Wuxian. Yun Jian was still here, and so was Senior Mu Qiong, who had saved them just now even though she failed to do so. The two ruffians went to Yun Jian right under Liang Xiumin and Mu Yu's eyes. However, before anyone could react, Yun Jian, who was standing not far away, gave a cold red arc. In the next breath, everyone could only feel their clothes being blown by a sudden strong wind, and their skin that was stuck to their clothes felt cold. In a speed that no one could see clearly, Yun Jian suddenly stretched out her hands and held a butterfly knife in each hand. She quickly walked to the front of the two old ruffians and held the butterfly knife with both hands. She slid the blade of the butterfly knife from the two old ruffians' navels to their hearts. At the same time, she was facing the two old ruffians. As she moved her hands, she lightly kicked the ground with her legs and did a somersault. She did not touch the two old ruffians at all and flipped over their heads. Hiss! When everyone reacted, the two ruffians' clothes were torn by Yun Jian. By the time everyone realized what had happened, the clothes of the two old ruffians had already been torn apart, and the place where the last cut had been made was precisely where their hearts were. If the blade had slid a little deeper. Then when the two old ruffians realized this, their faces turned pale. At this time, Yun Jian, who was already standing behind the two old ruffians, spoke in an extremely calm voice. That voice was like the scythe of the Grim Reaper chopping down on people's heads, with a frightening magic. "Want to go to hell and try it? A. Chapter 2063. I'll send you to hell for free. Just when the two old ruffians witnessed Yun Jian's perfect knife skills, Yun Jian's voice came from behind them. That chilly tone that did not contain the slightest hint of a joke was like the Grim Reaper from hell with a scythe in his hand. It was as if that soul-shaking sound had come from the hall of hell. The two old ruffians widened their eyes and their frightened bodies trembled. You, who are you? Even the female university student who fell behind is not as good as you. Are you a university student or not? That short old ruffian slowly turned around. He didn't have time to cover his exposed skin, but exposed his hairy chest in front of everyone and said in a daze. Female university students were usually delicate girls who studied in school. Usually, after running 800 meters, they would be so tired that their chest heaved up and down and they would gasp for breath. These two old ruffians, however, were genuine farmers. They did rough work every day and had done rough work all their lives. Not to mention other things, they were full of strength. At least, that female university student was powerless in the hands of these two old ruffians. But just now, when the two of them were dealing with Yun Jian, they couldn't even touch the corner of her clothes. Furthermore, she actually jumped up and flipped over their heads at the same time, using the two butterfly knives to cut open their clothes. What kind of speed and strength was this? But even so, these two old ruffians didn't believe that Yun Jian was an assassin or a secret agent. Whether I'm a university student or not, haven't I already said it? Yun Jian was already standing in front of the two old ruffians. Her hands nimbly and freely played with the two butterfly knives. She played with the extremely difficult butterfly knives incisively and vividly. Then, Liang Xiumin and that senior named Mu Yong saw such a shocking scene. Yun Jian took 2 steps towards the two old ruffians. The two old ruffians were so scared that they took 2 steps back. This was a sharp contrast to the 2 old ruffians' arrogance at the beginning. You 2 old ruffians. Could it be that the female university student you're talking about has already been? When Liang Shumin heard that the 2 old ruffians had just met a female university student, she was so scared that her face suddenly changed. Since the short old ruffian said that the girl who fell behind wasn't as powerful as Yunjian, it meant that the 2 old ruffians had already done something to her. What the 2 old ruffians wanted to do to Yunjian and Liang Shumin, they must have already done it to the female university student who was left behind. It's her fault for wearing so little. She's only wearing a pair of shorts and long, flesh-colored socks in the middle of winter. The women in our town don't show their thighs even in summer. It's as if she's not wearing anything. She's not trying to seduce us, she just wants us to do her. What else can she do? The short ruffian still had a reason to quibble. This short old ruffian had a lot of chest hair, the kind that was thick and dense, looking like the body hair of a gorilla. Of course, the short old ruffian's chest hair was concentrated on one point, which made him look even more disgusting. Hearing the old ruffian's words, Liang Shumin was so scared that she almost cried. After all, Liang Shumin was a pampered person and had never seen such a scene. She felt sorry for the unfortunate female university student, but she was also afraid that if Yunjian didn't have the ability to do so just now, then wouldn't she? And Yunjian, I don't care what reason you're using to clear your name. Since you've touched someone, you should pay the price. As Yunjian spoke, her cold eyes deepened. She held the butterfly knife and walked towards the 2 old ruffians. You, what do you want to do? Let me tell you, it's illegal to hurt someone. The 2 old ruffians were so scared that they retreated. Mu Xiao, who was tied up by the 2 old ruffians, was stunned when she saw this. But in the next second, Mu Xiao heard Yunjian say, "Is rape not a crime?" At that time, have you ever thought that you've already committed a crime? These words made Mu Xiao want to clap her hands and cheer. But Mu Xiao was tied up. But at this moment, Mu Xiao suddenly saw Yunjian holding 2 butterfly knives and directly stabbing them into the thighs of the 2 old ruffians who were about to retreat. Ah! Ah! 2 screams pierced through the sky. Blood flowed out. But Yunjian didn't care about this at all. After she took out the 2 butterfly knives, she turned around and faced the 2 old ruffians with her back facing them. She sneered. "I'll cripple one of your legs. In order to repay the surprise you gave me just now, I'll return the favor. If someone passes by here and saves you, you're lucky. If not, then go to hell, eh?" Seeing that Yun of Yunjian, of Yun of Yun of Liang, of Yun of Yun of Yun of Yun of Yun, of Yun of Yun of Yun of Yun of Yun of Yun of people of Yunjian of Yun of Yun of Yun of Yun, Yunjian, let's go. I'm scared, Liang, she of Yun of Yunjian of Yun of Yunjian of Yun of Yun. Are you going to save them? Then let me help you. After all, if these 2 people really die here, sooner or later, something big will happen. Mu Yao thought that Yunjian of Yunjian had stopped to find someone to save the 2 old ruffians. After all, if they killed people, they would be discovered sooner or later. With the current situation of these 2 old ruffians, if they really left without asking, the probability of them dying was very high. Mu Yao turned around, wanting to help send the 2 old ruffians to the small clinic in Wuzhen. Just as Mu Yu turned around, she saw Yunjian turn her head and shift her stunning side profile to the 2 old ruffians in front of everyone. She sneered and spoke frankly to the 2 ruffians, saying something that shocked and horrified everyone present. What do you think? Many people have said the same thing to me, but they are all dead now. You 2 don't matter. A. Chapter 2065. Based on Yunjian's words, everyone present, including Mu Xiao and Liang Shumin, could not help but panic. An emotion called shock swept over them. How many people had Yunjian killed? Or to put it in another way, what kind of place did she grow up in? Why did she have such shocking strength and skills? Mu Xiao had clearly seen that Yunjian did not even blink when she stabbed the 2 butterfly knives into the thighs of the 2 ruffians. There was only coldness and indifference in her eyes. It was as if she had just stabbed an ant with the butterfly knives. After Yunjian finished speaking, she did not wait for the 2 ruffians behind her to hug their thighs and roll on the ground while saying something. She waved at Liang Xiumin and Mu Xiao and quickly left. Before Liang Xiumin left, she ran over to pick up the newly bought blankets. She did not dare to turn her head to look at the knife wounds on the 2 ruffians' thighs. She only lowered her head and hurried to catch up with Yunjian. On the way back, Liang Xiumin remained silent. Liang Xiumin was a missy after all. When had she ever seen such a scene? Even the scene of a butcher slaughtering a pig would probably make Liang Xiumin pale with fright. Yunjian had just stabbed a living person's thigh. Yunjian, is it really okay for us to just leave like this? Liang Xiumin turned her head to look around in fear. She hugged the blankets and followed beside Yunjian. Yunjian nodded. She did not say anything else. A strange light flashed across Mu Zhao's eyes. It was only then that Mu Yu pointed at Yunjian and said, "Those 2 are too shameless. If it weren't for her, we would have really died today. Don't care if they live or die. They deserve it. Moreover, a female classmate who came with us was tragically killed by them. That girl's pure and innocent chastity was sullied by those 2 things. Such people should die." Mu Zhao's words made Liang Xiumin's eyes move slightly. Yeah, if it wasn't for Yunjian today, we would have ended up like that female classmate. I would have died. Liang Xiumin thought that if her innocence was taken away by that old ruffian before she gave it to her boyfriend, Jianghu, she probably didn't want to live anymore. At the thought of this, Liang Xiumin was so frightened that her body trembled. Thinking about it this way, those 2 old ruffians really deserved to die. Just don't know what happened to the girl who was taken away by the old ruffian. Senior Mu Yu, no matter what, thank you for today. At this moment, Liang Xiumin suddenly remembered that Mu Yao had rushed out to save her and Yunjian. She turned her head and thanked her. The eldest miss would sometimes restrain her emotions and thank others. It's fine as long as you guys are fine. Haha. Mu Xiao rubbed his head and laughed. His head had just been stepped on by one of the old ruffians, and now his hair was covered in dust. Seeing this, Liang Xiumin was even more grateful. Just as they returned to the vicinity of Wuzhen Primary School, one after another, noisy screams were heard. It seemed like something big had happened. When Yunjian and the other 2 came to the side of a short mud house, they saw a college girl standing on a steep cliff not far away. This cliff was about 6 stories high. If one jumped down from it, they would definitely die. At the bottom of the cliff, which was the short mud house, there was a group of people surrounding it. A few college students who came with Yunjian were standing there. They were so frightened that their faces were pale. However, they were desperately shouting for the female student who was standing alone on the cliff to calm down. Sure, don't be agitated. What exactly happened? Don't jump. This was the cry of the female student who wanted to jump down from a high place to commit suicide. Io, what exactly is going on? How would I know? I just came over and saw this little girl wanting to commit suicide. How old is she? She's so noisy. She came to our Wuzhen to commit suicide. If something really happened, what should we do? This girl from the city is really difficult to deal with, eh? Chapter 2066. Except for the female university student who was standing on the high ground with a face full of tears, as well as the friend who was desperately shouting the name of the female university student. Many gossipy women in their 50s or 60s in Wuzhen were standing on the side, watching the show and pointing. It was not an exaggeration to say that they were watching a show. This group of gossipy women had no intention of rushing up to save her. But some of the men around had already taken measures to save her. There were also some people below who helped to persuade the female university student who wanted to jump off the cliff. "It's dirty, I don't want to live anymore, it's dirty." The female university student standing on the cliff kept shaking her head and muttering these words. The bystanders couldn't understand what the female university student was saying and thought that she was crazy. She actually wanted to jump off the cliff. Yun Jian, who happened to be passing by, narrowed her eyes. If she guessed correctly, this female university student was the one who was defiled by the two old ruffians. Some people valued their chastity. If they lost their chastity, they would rather die. But some people thought that life was more important, and chastity was nothing. Everyone had their own aspirations, just like how radishes and vegetables each had their own preferences. Everyone's mentality was different. But since she was standing on the cliff, this female university student must be someone who valued her chastity very much. She did not jump, of course, because she was afraid and did not want to die. Could she be? Liang Xiumin suddenly saw the female university student standing on the cliff. Thinking back to the two old ruffians she met just now, she fiercely trembled. This female university student must be the one who was defiled by the two old ruffians. Otherwise, why would a perfectly good girl want to commit suicide? And it was so good that she chose to commit suicide at this time. Seeing this scene, Liang Xiumin suddenly felt that Yun Jian's way of dealing with the two old ruffians was not too ruthless. She was hurt to the point of wanting to commit suicide. Those two old ruffians deserved to die. What should we do, Yun Jian? Liang Xiumin was a little scared and did not dare to look at the cliff. She was afraid that the female university student would really jump off like this. "Let's go." Yun Jian's indifferent voice sounded, and then she had already walked away. Ah! Liang Xiumin was stunned. Isn't it too immoral to turn a blind eye? Shall we go over and help? Obviously, Mu Xiao was not very satisfied with Yun Jian's current performance. Unexpectedly, just as Mu Ming finished speaking, Yun Jian's voice rang out. If she wants to die, no one can save her for the rest of her life. Even if he was saved this time, what about the next time? What about the next time? Yun Jian's words stunned Mu Xiao. After recovering from the shock, Mu Xiao lowered her eyes and did not speak again. After that, Mu Xiao and Liang Xiumin followed Yun Jian back to Wuxia Primary School. The moment they were about to enter the school, Yun Jian suddenly spoke, leaving behind a sentence that made Mu Yu and Liang Xiumin feel relieved for some reason. She doesn't know how to jump. Wuxia Primary School. The students were still in school. In the dilapidated field, a large group of girls sat together to listen to Shen Qingjiang's bragging. Ever since he successfully stole something from new crews, Shen Qingjiang felt more and more that he was suited to be a master thief. At this moment, Shen Qingjiang was showing off his ability to steal in front of the girls. Obviously, the girl who jumped off the cliff was not with Shen Qingjiang's group. Come. Have you hidden the coins properly? It's time for me to show off my amazing stealing skills. Shen Qingjiang rubbed his hands. A smug expression appeared on his not-so-handsome face. The girls could not wait any longer and all of them responded. Good. Next, put your hands on top of mine. I'll steal the coins from you in the shortest time possible. As Shen Qingjiang spoke, the girls placed their hands on Shen Qingjiang's hands without any warning, as though they had heard a cult. Meanwhile, Yun Jian and the other two had just walked past Shen Qingjiang's group. On the other side, Shen Qingjiang took the opportunity to secretly touch the hands of this group of silly girls a few times. His other hand, on the other hand, quickly and skillfully, secretly took out coins from the girls' pockets. About 2 minutes later, Shen Qingjiang, who had finally found all the coins on the girls, shouted, "All right. I bet you guys didn't notice that the coins are on me." After saying this, Shen Qingjiang spread out his hand, wanting to show the coin to the girls, causing them to scream. When he opened his hands, the coins were gone. How could they be gone? That's impossible. Absolutely impossible. The coins were behind me just now. How could it be? Shen Qingjiang shook his head absent-mindedly. It was then that Yun Jian, who had walked 5 meters away, turned around under Mu Xiao and Liang Xiumin's bewildered gazes. She stretched out her hand and scattered the handful of coins on the ground in front of everyone. She smirked. Is this what you're looking for? When did you take the coins? Why are they with you? Shen Qingjiang's expression changed drastically. I'm the disciple of the international master thief, Lam. If you stole something from me, I'd definitely feel it. How could this be? Shen Qingjiang revealed his secret in his nervousness. Hearing Shen Qingjiang's words, Yun Jian narrowed her eyes slightly. Lam from the fox hunting organization? In the next second, Yun Jian's beautiful voice resounded through the whole place. The fox hunting organization was the biggest international master thief organization. How did you know? Shen Qingjiang was shocked again. Then, he frowned and said, since you know how powerful my master is, how dare you? This was already his biggest secret. He had never told anyone. How did she know? However, as soon as Shen Qingjiang finished speaking, an even more shocking scene unfolded before everyone's eyes. In the next breath, Yun Jian, who was standing on the other side, suddenly curled her lips into a red arc. Her cool expression coupled with her melodious voice spoke arrogantly to Shen Qingjiang, surprising everyone there. You're right. You're right. You're right. There's no one in the world that I, Yun Jian, don't know. Not to mention Lam, the master thief of the fox hunting organization. Even the boss of the fox hunting organization has to kneel in front of me. Your master is just a member of the fox hunting organization. Why wouldn't I dare? Chapter 2067. Since Shen Qingjiang claimed to be Lam's subordinate, he must have heard of the fox hunting organization from Lam. Although the fox hunting organization was an organization, it was different from the Anhun organization and the Kosha mercenaries. The fox hunting organization only accepted things that their employers wanted to steal or treasures that they wanted to find. Other than that, they never accepted missions like killing people. Obviously, at this moment, other than Shen Qingjiang, who was half in the circle, the girls around Shen Qingjiang, Senior Mu Yong, and Liang Xiumin didn't understand the meaning of Yun Jian's words. But the people around them weren't stupid. Although they couldn't understand the meaning of Yun Jian's words, they could still roughly understand what Yun Jian meant. What she meant was, not to mention Shen Qingjiang's master, even the boss of Shen Qingjiang's master's organization had to kneel down when he saw Yun Jian. Was she even an international person? If that was the case, then who was she? She actually had such an ability. Compared to the others, Shen Qingjiang's face had gone from being rosy at the beginning to pale and lifeless at this moment. He always thought that his master, Lam, was his biggest trump card. It was also because of this that Shen Qingjiang didn't brag about his master even though he had bragged to the outside world. This was because Shen Qingjiang felt that the trump card and the killer move had to be taken out at the last moment. Only then would it be enough to make people go crazy. But Shen Qingjiang never thought that his trump card, his biggest trump card, would be hit by Yun Jian's words. Even his biggest trump card, Lam's boss, was defeated by Yun Jian. Plus, when he came here, Yun Jian's behavior on the bus. At this moment, Shen Qingjiang didn't dare to treat Yun Jian as an ordinary female university student anymore. How do you know everything? You know that my master, Lam, is from the fox hunting organization. Could it be that you also know the fox hunting organization's master? But even so, Shen Qingjiang didn't dare to think highly of Yun Jian. He looked at Yun Jian and said in a daze. Could it be that Yun Jian was also a disciple of a godly thief in the fox hunting organization? So, she was able to steal the coins that he stole from the girls without him noticing at all? Shen Qingjiang found it inconceivable. It was only by chance that he managed to become the disciple of god thief Ram. He had originally thought that this was his own capital. But Shen Qingjiang never thought that. There was actually a girl who had also worshipped the thief god as her master. Moreover, the other party's standard was even higher than his. Although Shen Qingjiang was very unhappy, after knowing the so-called truth, he tried to please Yunjian. It was my fault before. I had eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. May I ask, according to seniority, are you my junior sister or senior sister? Also, junior sister, who is your master? Do you know my master? Not to mention other things, Shen Qingjiang thought that Yun Jian was also a disciple of a master thief in the fox hunting organization. Therefore, when Shen Qingjiang spoke, there was a hint of flattery in his tone as if he was talking to a family member. Of course, this made Shen Qingjiang even more proud. At the same time, Shen Qingjiang even heard the girls around him boasting about him with even more exaggerated words. However, just as Shen Qingjiang was enjoying this feeling, Yun Jian's words were arrogant and brash. Her arrogance carried an absolute aura, as well as a sense of awe that made people have no choice but to submit to her. She said word by word to Shen Qingjiang, who was in a fantasy, in front of everyone, how can a small fox hunting organization trap me? If I want, I can take over the fox hunting organization at any time. Ram was blind to take you in. But it doesn't matter, I will make him cut ties with you. You want to have a relationship with the fox hunting organization? You are not worthy. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.